Previously on Pretty Little Liars.
Hi guys, it's
Lauren Daisy.
Welcome back to my channel after so long. I have missed you guys so much. I've missed making videos so much. Everything has just been so hectic and busy, and with the book, and I also moved. I don't know if I mentioned that before. So decorating, like wedding planning, all that stuff. It was also my birthday. It was a whole thing. So I haven't actually been able to sit down and film for so long, but I'm so excited to finally be doing another PLL video. This is where I feel at home. Like making PLL videos, like this is my calling, you know? So today we are doing a video that you guys have been asking for a very long time. So today we are going to be talking about how I would have ended Pretty Little Liars, how I would have written the ending. I have gone from like around the season 5 mark ish, predominantly like rewriting season 6 and 7, but I've kind of kept some things. You'll see, like basically all of 1 through 5 is the same aside from a couple different notes, and then I've kind of like rewritten season 6 and 7 into how I would have had the different A reveals that we got, and how the story would have like progressed from there, and the things they would have done, and where they would have been after the time jump. Like we're going to talk about absolutely all of it. Also, sorry that the lighting is kind of weird. We're using natural lighting, so it's just kind of like it's coming and going, but that's okay. That's what we're doing today. But yeah, the reason this took me so long to film and was just because I just kept rewriting it, and I just kept being like, oh, actually I like this idea better, or oh no, I'm going to change this back to this, and or should this person end up with this person? And so yeah, hopefully you guys like it, or you like elements of it. Obviously, this is just like my opinion. I think it would have been interesting if it ended up this way. And I want to hear in the comments, obviously, what you guys would have chosen instead. So please let me know down below, and then we can chit chat and kind of discuss the way that everyone else would have liked the show to have ended. But before we get into that, something that I think all of the girls would have benefited from after the time jump. This portion of the video is in partnership with flexispot. They reached out to me and I was able to be given one of their E7 Plus desks. And guys, when I tell you I'm so beyond obsessed with this desk, okay, which sounds so crazy to say about a desk, but for someone like me, or I'm sure lots of you guys that work from home, having a good desk is just like paramount. It's so perfect for me when I film my different videos, because most of the time I'm doing like sit down videos, but I do also do standing up videos. And for those, I wish I would have filmed the setup that I had, because it was like me standing in front of the whiteboard, my laptop like balanced on like the bed or books or anything, and now I can literally just raise the desk up, put my camera there, put my laptop there, and go and film, and it is so much easier. It is so good. I can literally have it at whatever height I want. It's also super sturdy. This desk does not move, like it does not shake, it doesn't anything. It is stable. The keyboard on it is so good, and you can kind of like save the like presets. You can save up to 4. I love the fact that you can plug your phone into this, because again, as many of us who work from home do, there's not enough plug sockets. Like there's not enough hours in the day, there's not enough plug sockets in this room. So being able to just plug not have to worry about my phone and just plug it straight in there, 10 out of 10, fast charging, fabulous. You can also customize it. So I went for the black legs with the brown rattan like desktop, which I think is so gorgeous. I think it looks so nice in this room with all the colors, but they have so many others to choose from. I was debating between this one and mahogany for a little while, and just like going through, I just did not know what to choose, but I landed on this one and I'm so happy with it. I think it's absolutely gorgeous color. I went for the largest desktop that they had available, just because I have a lot of stuff I literally have like a little section for my makeup for when I'm getting ready. Then I have like my monitor and my laptop over there, and it can hold up to 200 kg. So that's fabulous for me because I have a lot of stuff. I have a lot of trinkets, I have a lot of things. Also, there is a 10-year warranty on it. So if anything ever does go wrong with it, you know that you are able to exchange it and get that fixed, which is so good. I feel like so many things these days come with like 2-year warranty, and I'm like, that's not really going to help me out, is it? Thank you so much to flexispot for partnering me on this portion of the video. I'm so in love with this desk. Like, it is fabulous. Like, it is genuinely so well made, such good quality. I can't rave about it enough. So I will leave the link in the description if you guys want to just check out their website, check out this specific desk, the E7 Plus. And yeah, let's get back into the video. We're going to start out with season 5. And like I said, I didn't rewrite season 5 completely. I just kind of changed a couple of storylines and plot points in order to make what I have written for 6 and 7 make sense. You with me? So I have it that Arya files her police report against Ezra, the one that she writes when she initially finds out about his book. I personally would have had her file the police report rather than getting back together with Ezra. And by doing this, he has his teaching license revoked, but he doesn't go to jail because due to lack of evidence. And this is actually what happens in the book. So I thought this was a better storyline, obviously, than the one that we got. Also, I love Ian Harding. I didn't want to kill off Ian Harding. I didn't want to get rid of him because I do love him and I think he's a great addition to the show. So I kept it that he had his teaching license revoked and he didn't end up going to prison, so that he could kind of still be a character that I could use and put into future storylines. But I still wanted it clear that he and Arya are no longer together and that she had realized what he had done was wrong and had reported him for that. And Arya, in my version, is still happy that she spoke up and that she said something, and she feels, empowered in doing so, and all of the liars obviously support her through this. And by doing this and filing the report, it also stops the publication of his book. In this version, he does still write the book. Like I said, pretty much everything from seasons 1 till 4 is the exact same. So he did still write the book. He was in love with Allison. And so by filing her report against him, that puts a stop to the book, because his book essentially admits that he was in a relationship with Arya and Allison. So if he publishes this, it is then gonna give the evidence that's needed for her police report, so he can't do that. So she feels happy that she spoke up against him and that now the book is not going to be published.
He's a writer who found a great opportunity to make a name for himself. And he used me. He used us. He never really loved me.
Also, due to her being a minor, her name is not released to the public. I don't know why they made it seem like in this show that everyone would know who she was and that she wouldn't be protected if she spoke up against Ezra, because her name absolutely would have been protected. It wouldn't have been in the papers or anything like that. So I don't know why Ella and Hannah, I mean, maybe Hannah less so because she's also a teenager, but like Ella saying, oh, everyone's already talking about her, like, do we want to ruin her life even more? That's not, babe, that's not how it works. I also wanted that throughout season 5, we would get more flashbacks and explanation as to where Allison had been. I think that is one of the most missed opportunities with this show, because Allison is just such an iconic character and her disappearance is a huge part of the show. She's gone from seasons 1 to 5, essentially, like seasons 1 to 4, then she's back in season 5. What was she doing for all that time? And it's never really answered. We only get a few like flashbacks. One, obviously we know that she pushed Ian and that she came back to see Hannah, and we see, but those are things we kind of already, that we knew happened, but that we'd already seen. So we saw that someone had pushed Ian, and now we know that was Allison. But in terms of new flashbacks, we only, I think, really get the one with her and Cyrus. So I think it would have been so much more fun to delve into that more. And this is what I think should have happened in the year that Allison disappeared. So in my version, Allison flees Rosewood in September of 2009. Yeah, September 2009, because she was pregnant with Wilden's baby. And she was terrified that he was going to kill her, like Cece says. And so she fled. She left. She was too scared to tell anybody. She was too scared to tell her mum, because obviously they didn't have that great of a relationship. And the only person that knew was Cece. But Cece assumes that maybe Wilden did kill her, that he did find out about the baby. She doesn't know that Allison went into hiding, but she does obviously know that the baby exists because we saw that flashback.
I'm late. Have you told him? I can't. Like, if he finds out, he's gonna kill me.
So she then goes away, and in that first year that she's gone, she has the baby and she gives the baby up for adoption. This is a storyline that actually comes from the books, but it is Emily instead that gives her baby up for adoption. So again, I kind of like following some of the book storylines because I feel like they gave so much good material and plot lines that could have been used that didn't end up being used. So I'm trying to kind of like weave them in as well. So yeah, that's where Allison was. She gave birth to Wilden's baby, and then she decided to just stay gone. For her, it was just easier, and she liked being able to do whatever she wanted. She was too scared to come back to Rosewood because obviously Wilden was still there, and if he found out or anything like that, for her, she just felt it was easier to stay away. And she didn't really miss being in Rosewood. She didn't really miss her family. She had kind of started this new life. I didn't really decide where it would be. Maybe New York could be kind of cool, like Boston, somewhere like that. She's still on that side, so like near-ish to obviously Rosewood in Pennsylvania, but she's got her own life. That's what she's doing throughout the 2 years that she's gone. She has a baby, and then she just decides to just stay away. Aside from the times when she does obviously come back. So when she comes back, when she knows the lies are in danger. But outside of that, she's happy living her life. She just stays back. And she also realizes that she can help the liars more by being gone, because she can come and just get rid of Ian and no one ever knows it was her. She can come back and check in, but she doesn't have the hassle and the chaos of actually still being alive. I also forgot to mention, it happens the same way that it does in the show. It's just different motives. So she still like gets hit over the back of the head, but I am going to change who did that later on. And she is pulled out of the ground by Grunwald. She, wanders off. She gets picked up by Mona. Mona, she ends up telling Mona about the baby, about the fact that someone tried to kill her and that it's not safe for her. And Mona still helps her leave and knows that she's alive that whole time. So all of that stays the same. It's just that the motives for leaving are slightly different. So she explains all of this to them in that season finale, season premiere. So A is for Answers, and then Escape from New York. That is kind of what she is explaining happened. In my version, Cece still kills Wilden because it still makes sense. She wanted to protect Allison. She wanted Allison to be able to come back to Rosewood, and so she killed Wilden because that was kind of all that was stopping Allison from coming back. So that's all still intact. And she explains the whole story and everything that happened. And I also wanted to amend another thing in season 5, and that's Hannah's alcohol problem. I think that storyline was just a bit mishandled, but it could have been used in a really effective way. So in my version, the girls really support Hannah, and it's taken a lot more seriously and noticed by the other girls and not just joked about and kind of dismissed. And she explains to them how Allison coming back has really affected her, obviously very deeply, because Allison was the one that kind of brought her into her eating disorder. So obviously Allison coming back and the way that she like bullied her so horribly, she was never truly a friend to Hannah. So it would make sense why Hannah isn't exactly excited to see her back. And I also would have a scene where Hannah confronts Alison about this. And Alison apologizes to her for bullying her and for the role that she played. Because I think it would have been interesting as well, because if Alison was teaching Hannah how to get rid of food, that must have come from somewhere. So was she experiencing the same thing? And then maybe they could have spoken about it. Like, that never really is spoken about again or like delved into. And I think that would have been a really good scene to have, was just those two actually talking it out and talking about why Hannah was so upset with Alison. And when they have this conversation, Hannah decides to accept her apology and start fresh. But when she tells Caleb about it, Caleb is unsure if it was sincere. He thinks maybe Alison is still lying and she's still the same old Alison, whereas Hannah asks him to kind of give her a chance because Caleb is the only character that hasn't met Alison. Like, when they interact for the first time in Miss Me Times 100, that is literally their first ever interaction. He's the only character that comes into the show after Alison is already dead. So he has no bearing. Like, he has nothing to go off of except the horror stories that he's been told. So he's very wary of Alison, whereas Hannah is kind of maybe wanting to forgive her. I would have had the same thing with the dollhouse. I think the dollhouse is chef's kiss. I think it's genius. I think it's just amazing. Those episodes are so good and they're so well done. And for that reason, I would have had the dollhouse go on for a lot longer. I think there was so much they could have done. That set was incredible. The fact that it was the replicas of all the girls' like rooms, and the games that A was making them play, we don't really get to see, but obviously it looks like they're choosing which one of the other liars to hurt or to not give food or water. So I think getting to see more of that would have just been amazing because those episodes were great. Whereas obviously in the actual show, it's just a time jump to 3 months later, I think, or is it 3 weeks? No, I think it's just 3 weeks. Or is it a month? I can't remember. How long are they in the dollhouse for? But however long, we get to see a lot more of that and kind of how things go and the days progress rather than just jump to them getting out. And that's kind of where we finish season 5. So now we're getting to where it splits a lot more, and this is kind of all what I had written for season 6 and season 7. So I still have Cece as A. I think Cece as A actually did make a lot of sense. I think the way that they went about it didn't, but I think her as a character, being Alison's ex-best friend, knowing her from when she was still alive, I think that's a really interesting character to have that is solely linked to Alison and not to the girls in any way, not one of their friends. I still think she was just so shady and so bitchy, and I think they actually set her up to be A really well. The issue came when they tried to divert expectations and make us think that A was a guy. I think that's kind of where the whole thing got misconstrued, and the whole transgender storyline in general is just very mishandled. I think in PLL Original Sin, the reboot, we got a transgender character played by Jordan Gonzalez, and I loved Ash. I thought he was integrated into the show so perfectly. So I think I would have liked to have seen transgender representation in PLL still, but it would have been in the form of just a nice transgender character. We're not going to play into the villain stereotypes. Maybe, I don't know, a love interest for Arya, or just, I don't know, or just like a friend that someone meets, like met while they were at college, or like Sabrina, who started working at the brew, as like the head chef. That could have been a transgender character, played by a transgender actor or actress. Something like that I would have liked, just to kind of rectify the representation that we got. So in my version, Cece is A, but she is not transgender. And she is also not related to Alison. I think for me, I understood why they wanted that link, but I think it's much more interesting to have a friend that would be that committed to you, because families, that kind of makes sense. That you would be so viciously loyal, or would take things to such extremes. But I think to have a friend that would do that is a much more interesting storyline and a much more interesting motive. That they just became friends and bonded so quickly. They didn't like grow up together or anything, but they were just like kindred spirits. I think that's a lot more interesting. But I have it that A was a duo. So kind of like, like Ghostface, how in Scream it's usually a team of 2 people. I think as we get into the later seasons, it's just like, how could one person possibly do all of this? So I have it as 2 people. I have it as Cece, and I have the other person as Ren. So I think this would have been such an interesting duo. And I'm going to kind of explain how this would have worked. So in my version, like how with Ghostface, there's usually someone that does the killing and someone that is more of the mastermind. For me, Ren is more of the mastermind. He is the black hoodie. So every time we see A, that is Ren, and Cece is red coat. So anytime that we see red coat running around, causing shenanigans, like at the fire, when she was watching Hannah through the window, anything like that, anytime someone catches a glimpse of red coat, that was Cece. In my version, Ren attended Hollis College. So before we meet him, it's said that him and Melissa met at school, I think, and obviously she went to UPenn. But in this version, I have Ren going to Hollis, and there he meets Ezra. Okay, walk with me. So, because Ren and Ezra, I think, are the same age, or maybe, yeah, I think they're about the same age, so this would still work. So Ren meets Ezra, and they become friends, and Ezra tells Ren about Allison, because obviously he's dating her at this time. He was dating her towards like he was dating her, so he still would have had a full year of college left, because he just graduated. So he would be in his like 2nd year, I think, if you guys, because in the UK it's 3 years. So if he'd had a year left, he would have been in 2nd year. Anyway, his 2nd to last year. I would have had Ren in his final year. When he meets Melissa, during the time jump, he has graduated. So he has already graduated and left. But during the summer that Allison disappeared, he would be doing his final year, and he would be friends with Ezra, who is doing his 2nd to final year. I feel like this sounds so confusing, but I hope that it is translating okay. Anyway, so they become really close, and Ezra tells Ren about Allison, and that he had met her at the bar, and that, she seemed really cool, and they were going to go to New York and all this kind of stuff. Then Allison disappears, and Ezra says to Ren, this is so crazy, like she's just vanished. Like I saw her this night and then she was just gone. And he says that he found out about her being underage and he went to end things, and Ren finds this really interesting. He's kind of enamored by the fact that Allison was able to manipulate Ezra so well, and then he obviously graduates and Ezra stays, and they kind of become a bit more distant because they're not at school together anymore. He then meets Melissa, and Melissa is like, oh, I'm a Hastings. And Ren remembers hearing about Spencer Hastings from Ezra, because Ezra knew obviously who all the girls were, knew that they were all friends. So he already knew who Spencer was when he met Melissa. So he was like, okay, this is a way for me to kind of get in and find out more about this Allison story and this mystery. It's kind of similar to Ezra, and how he wanted to know what happened to her. It's kind of a similar thing where Ren just becomes enamored by this, but not in the same way as Ezra. Ezra's doing it, the way they kind of justify it is more of a research thing, and he wants to write this book, whereas Ren is just completely, because he is a doctor and he's interested in the psychology of Allison and the group and how kind of like evil and manipulative she seemed, while also seeming really sweet at the same time and being able to charm everyone. He just finds this so interesting that he just wants to know everything about it. And he almost becomes, in a way, in love with a ghost. Like, he becomes in love with Allison and wants to know everything about her and is just enamored with the idea of her. And because she's not around anymore and he only, I don't know, maybe he met her once, like with Ezra, or Ezra showed him a picture or something like that. So now that he can't actually meet her and like spend time with her, he then goes to the next best place, which is infiltrating the Hastings house and getting a job at Radley and becoming integrated in Rosewood to just find out more and kind of almost live as if he was with Allison. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense. He just loves the evil side of it. He's interested in that and the manipulation in the games. Then in season 3, when Mona goes into Radley, Ren is working there. Instead of it being Cece that is obviously a patient and finds out about the game through that, it is Ren. So Ren is obviously working there and talking to Mona and doing her psych evaluations, and Mona tells him all about the game, all about being A, and what she's done to the girls, and he becomes obsessed. He thinks this is incredible. He thinks this is exactly what Allison would have wanted. She would have wanted her friends to pay for the fact that they're so happy now that she's gone, and he just, again, is so intrigued by the way that this game works and how the dynamics work, and he loves it. So he becomes obsessed with it. And through talking to Mona, Mona tells him that Allison is alive. Because remember, Mona knew that Allison was alive this entire time. And because she's on, a bunch of drugs and all this stuff, she doesn't really know what she's saying. And she ends up telling him everything and telling him that Allison is alive. And because Ren is so obsessed with Allison, he's hell-bent on finding her. And he thinks, okay, well, if this game brings Allison back because she, comes when the girls are in danger, he thinks he can use the game and being A to lure Allison back to Rosewood. And he decides to recruit Cece.
Yes, I dodged a bullet there. Well, just goes to show. You can't trust anyone.
So he finds out about Cece and that she was old friends with Allison, and that she was obviously an older friend of Allison's, and that she had that more manipulative side and that darker side that Allison also had. Whereas the liars don't have that. They're a lot more genuine and more sweet, and they're also younger. And so Ren is not going to be able to recruit any of them because they're already victims of the game, whereas Cece isn't. So he goes to Cece and they connect, and he tells her Allison is alive. And Cece is shocked because she was convinced that Wilden probably had killed Allison, or maybe even Mrs. D had found out that she was pregnant and killed her, or something along those lines. And so to find out that Allison was alive, she then had the exact same motivation as Ren. Bring her back to Rosewood.
I don't know what's true.
Forgive me, it's none of my business.
I thought Wilden got Allie pregnant and killed her to keep it a secret.
So yeah, he and Cece had continued the game from season 3. So from season 3 up until 6A, it is them two working it together. Initially, the plan was to do it to get revenge on the girls, for one, getting over Allison's death so quickly, 2, getting closer once she was dead, and also almost seeming kind of relieved that she had died in some aspects. And so it was a revenge thing, but also they then were trying to lure her back to Rosewood. The final kind of part of the game was that Cece was going to kill Wilden, because her and Ren had decided the only way now that we can truly bring Allison back is to kill Wilden. And so Cece does. She kills Wilden, and Ren kind of tries to help her cover it up. And the same thing happens in that New York episode where Cece goes to Allison and Allison gives her the ticket, because now that Cece knows that Allison is safe, she is happy to flee America to escape this murder charge, now that she knows that Allison can go back to Rosewood, and also that Ren's going to be there waiting for her, because she knows how much Ren loves Allison, even though he's never met her, how much he's willing to do for her. So she is happy in knowing that when Allison goes back to Rosewood, she's going to have Ren, and so Cece can flee and escape the murder charge. And so she's like, everything's done now, everything's good, and she flies to Paris. But Ren is too locked in. Ren is in too deep to the game, and he wants to complete their ultimate plan, because they had obviously different things that they had done. They'd done the bones at the bridal, and they'd done the dead girls don't smile, and they kind of upped the ante a bit and taken the body out of the grave. Obviously we then know was Bethany Young, and there was, you know, they did so much intense stuff to the girls, like literally framing Ashley for murder, literally framing her for murder. So they had, you know, done a lot. They'd really upped the ante, but they had kind of always had this idea of making a real life dollhouse, because they had found the dollhouse in Mona's lair, Mona's original lair, that had the dolls of all the girls, and they thought, can you imagine if we were able to make this, like actually physically make it and trap the girls in there? So she tells Ren, look, just abandon the dollhouse idea. But he's like, we got way too far into it now. I'm not backing down. And so he goes ahead and he builds the dollhouse. And so he is the one we see in the dollhouse. He's the hoodie that we see. He's the suit with the mask that we see at the prom. That is all Ren. In terms of Sarah Harvey, I decided to just get rid of Sarah Harvey. To me, the character doesn't bring anything. It doesn't add anything. So I took her out. There is no Shower Harvey in my version of events. Now, there is still someone that gets found in the dollhouse though. This is where I feel like I kind of cooked a little bit. So, in season 5, when Mona gets killed, Mona is dead. And it's such a shame because I love Janelle so much. But I just think the impact of Mona dying was just, oh my God. Like the way my jaw dropped when I watched that episode, like I was like, surely Mona's not actually dead. But in this version, she is, because I think the show towards the end, it needed real stakes and there weren't any. You kind of knew all the liars were going to survive. You knew all the boyfriends were going to survive, all the main characters. So when they actually killed off Mona, it was shocking. And I think the show needed something like that. So I would keep Mona dead. I'm sorry. Cece decided to kill her as well. She's just on a bit of a murder spree. She obviously we see she comes back when it's like the winter episode, and so she like reconnects with Ren a little bit while she's there, and Ren is so consumed in making the dollhouse and completing their ultimate plan that he doesn't even really speak to Allison when she returns. Like he is just so focused on doing this, and he's like, if I can do this and get this dollhouse done, that's going to be the ultimate gift for Allison, because she always wanted to control the girls. She always wanted to be the puppet master. So if I can give her this dollhouse with them all in it where she can control all of them, she's going to love me forever. Okay? So Cece, when Mona tricks Allison into smacking her, when that whole video goes viral, that's when Cece decided she was going to kill Mona. Cece was like, I worked so hard to get Allison back here, and her popularity and her status as Queen Bee is not going to be jeopardized by losing Mona. So she kills her. And yeah, that's it. She is really dead. Another one of the most shocking parts of the show is then when it's revealed that Mona is alive. Because that also was a jaw-dropping moment. And I wanted to keep that moment, but I wanted to change it. So when the girls go in to the living room and they see Alison sat there with the blonde wig and the yellow top, when she pulls down the mask, it's Maya.
Hello, Emily.
Yes, Maya lives in my version. So instead of it being Mona behind the mask, it's Maya. So this is what happened to Maya in my version. She is not killed by Lyndon. The night that she died, which I think is prom or it's the night before, which I think is the masquerade ball or the night before the masquerade ball, she saw Mona as A. She saw her in the hoodie. Maybe she was going to Emily's house and she saw Mona leaving an A message or something to that effect, and she saw her as A. She basically threatened her life. She was like, if you ever tell anyone about this, like, I'm gonna kill you. No one can ever know about this. And in my version, Lyndon does still exist. He just doesn't end up killing Maya. So not only does she have a stalker after her, this like stalker ex-boyfriend from True North who she's scared of, she now also, her life is being threatened by Mona as well. So she's like, this is too much for me to handle. And she decides to fake her death. Kind of almost like an homage to Alison, except at this point we didn't even know that Alison had faked her death, but yeah. Fakes her death in order to protect herself from both Lyndon and Mona. And her intention was to come back to Rosewood. Because obviously Lyndon ended up being killed by Emily in self-defense, and then Mona was exposed as being A. So Maya thought, I can come back now. Like, the two people that I was hiding from, they're gone, so I'm gonna come back to Rosewood. So she does, and she is about to go to Emily's house to go and see her, and Cece catches her there. So Cece gets to her first. So before she can tell anyone she's alive, before she can go back and be reunited with Emily, Cece nabs her and decides that together, Ren and Cece decide that Maya would be a very valuable asset for the A-team. And because she had lived in Alison's house and she was romantically linked to Emily in the same way that Alison was, she was their perfect test Alison. So they ended up dressing her up like Alison, getting her to test all of the games in the dollhouse, getting her, she was kind of their guinea pig for the things they wanted to do to the liars. So like the tooth message that got put in Hannah's tooth, they tested that on her first to see if it would even work. All these kinds of things she ended up being the guinea pig for. So when they see her, she is obviously traumatized by everything that she has been through. So because Lyndon never outright said that he killed Maya, he never actually confessed to killing her, a lot of fans speculated as to whether she was alive. And obviously we had the Maya knew clue, but it was always, what did Maya know? And now in my version, it makes sense because Maya knew that Mona was A, and that was why she fled. And the reason that Lyndon never truly confessed to killing Maya is because he didn't. So when the girls are all trapped outside, when A leaves them trapped outside, this is when Maya is able to explain everything to the girls, because she doesn't have to act like Alison out there. She only has to really act like her when all the cameras are watching inside. So while they're out there in the rain, Maya explains to them everything that happened, from her faking her death to being captured by Ren and Cece, and then till now. So pretty much the exact same thing happens in Game 1, Charles, as that does in the show, except that Mona is replaced with Maya. So they end up setting the fire and they end up escaping. And yeah, it's pretty much exactly the same, but in my version, Mona is Maya instead. When Cece comes back and kills Mona, she kind of gets that bug for playing the game again, and she rejoins Ren. So although we only see Ren in the dollhouse, so we only see him like he is the one in the suit, and he is also like the hoodie that we see, Cece was still there. She was kind of plays the role that Noel plays in the actual show, where she was kind of behind the scenes, like dragging people around and putting the fake blood and doing all that kind of behind the scenes stuff. And so when the big fire breaks out, she was down there as well, but she's able to escape, and so is Ren. So it's similar to the show in that when they escape the dollhouse, they still don't know who it was. But it's obviously not just Cece this time, it's Cece and Ren. So like I said, in my version, Cece is Redcoat, but I actually don't have her being Black Widow. I think it would have been much more interesting to have Black Widow be another character rather than in the show. It's like, oh, Sarah Harvey was Redcoat and she was Black Widow. So in my version, Cece is Redcoat, Ren is the hoodie, Ren is A, and I have Melissa as the Black Widow. So I have her as kind of almost like how Lucas was, where not truly directly involved in the A-team, not wanting to hurt the girls, but being blackmailed into doing so. So Ren knows that Melissa buried Bethany the night that Allison disappeared because Cece told him. So they then use that information to blackmail Melissa into being the Black Widow and doing certain things that they couldn't do, like going to the funerals and just little tasks. Because obviously we know that Mona blackmailed her into being the Black Swan. So then Ren and Cece just kind of took over from this, and she just assumed that A was back in a new form, and she still obviously did not want anyone to know that she'd buried Bethany. So she was happy to be the Black Widow and do the tasks that they needed doing.
Who is that?
That's kind of like how mine connects, rather than it being Cece as A and then Sarah Harvey as Redcoat and Black Widow. It's Ren is A, Cece is Redcoat, and Melissa is the Black Widow. Also, when Redcoat visited Mona in Bradley and it was then revealed to be Cece in a dressing gown, that is not what happens. In this version, it is Cece and she is in the Redcoat because she is Redcoat. And she was purposefully pretending to be Allison, because we know that Mona hallucinated Allison a few times when she was in Radley. We see her looking and she sees Allison sitting there in the red coat, but this was actually Cece. So Cece goes in and pretends to be Allison to try and find out more about the game and more about that night, and that's when Mona reveals kind of everything that went down. So that's how Ren and Cece know so much, is because Mona basically told them everything. So Cece was there that night. I feel like that is another one of the most confusing plot holes in PLL, is the fact that we see Cece, is that we see Cece there, we see her talking to Melissa. Jason has this flashback and then she insists she wasn't there. She was there in the black hoodie. She wasn't dressed as Allison. That whole thing is so confusing. So in my version, that flashback that Jason had actually happened. She was there. She, did talk to Melissa about the videos, all of that. That story is true. So just to kind of smooth out that plot hole, that actually did happen. So I also did make some changes to the night that Allison disappeared. So I have that Allison was hit by Bethany. So Bethany Young still exists. She escaped Radley. And in this version, Bethany Young is played by Dre Davis. So the actress that played Shao Harvey, she instead plays Bethany Young. And we only see Bethany Young in flashbacks because she did actually die. There's no fake death there. So we only see her in flashbacks, but she is played by Dre. And she hits Allison over the head. It wasn't Mona, it was her. So she hit her over the head as a way to get back at Jessica, because as we know, Jessica was having an affair with Bethany's dad, and this just honestly kind of goes nowhere. Like, they reveal this lore, but then it kind of goes nowhere. So yeah, we find out that piece of lore that Jessica is having an affair with Bethany's dad, but it doesn't really go anywhere. And we have the letter that Allison had written to Bethany trying to get her to come to Rosewood, but then Allison said no, Cece faked that letter wasn't real. That whole thing is so confusing. So for me, Bethany goes and attacks Allison as revenge on Jessica. She feels like Jessica destroyed her family with the affair. She is then going to destroy Jessica's family by taking Allison away and killing her. The letter that is found by Hannah in the Christmas episode is 100% real in my version. Allison did write that, and she was trying to use this secret in a way, because I feel like with Allison, as we know, anytime she gets a secret, she uses it in a way to manipulate the people around her and use it to her benefit. So that's exactly what she was trying to do with this affair secret. Now, how did Allison find out about this affair? I'm going to tell you. So, this is another one that just never made sense. We have the flashback of Jessica being furious at Allison, saying, why has Radley called me, saying that you're in Radley, and then I get there and it's Cece Drake under your name. Like, that whole plot makes no sense, because if Cece was already in Radley at this time, why would they call Jessica? Why, like, it makes absolutely no sense. But in my version, because Allison and Cece are just best friends, this actually does happen. She dares Cece to go into Radley as her, and she does it. And while Cece is there, she discovers the affair.
She's dressed head to toe in your clothing, but it's not my daughter sitting in Radley. It's Cece Drake.
I can't believe that crazy bitch actually did it.
Because Bethany doesn't know what Allison looks like. She has only met Jessica. She doesn't know what Allison looks like. So then when she hears Allison De Laurentiis, she thinks that Cece truly is her. And she tells her everything. She says, your mom is ruining my life. She's having an affair with my dad. So then obviously Cece goes back and tells Allison the whole thing. So when Allison finds out about this affair, like I said, she loves to manipulate secrets. She wants more info. So she then actually goes to Radley herself, visits Bethany and says, I'm the real Allison. And they talk it over. Because she wants more blackmail to use against Jessica, basically, to use against her own mother. So she wants all the details. She wants to know everything. So then she writes this letter to Bethany, invites her to Rosewood, so that they can kind of confront Jessica together. But then Bethany realizes she didn't really care about her. She didn't really care about her family. She didn't feel bad for her. Allison just wanted to use her as leverage in her war with Jessica. So Bethany's, well, she's obviously furious at Jessica, but now she's also furious at Allison. So she decides, two birds, one stone. I can knock Allison, like I can kill Allison as kind of revenge on Allison for using me, but then also in turn I ruined Jessica's life. So that's her plan. Bethany comes to Rosewood that night and attempts to kill Allison by hitting her over the back of the head, and Jessica obviously sees this, and that's why she's so shocked, because she's like, this is all my fault. Bethany has escaped and she's come after my daughter, and she runs out there and it's like screaming at her and like they're, you know, whatever. And Bethany says, look, I'm still going to expose your affair. I'm going to go in there right now. I'm going to tell Kenneth, or I'm going to tell Jason, and everyone is going to know about this. And by the way, your own daughter knew and was going to blackmail you about it. So now Jessica's like, well, she thinks Allison is dead. So she's like, there's not really anything I can do about this. I can't bring her back. So she decides to bury her. So yeah, Jessica decides, look, I'm going to protect myself and the family I do have left. I can't have this getting out. And by burying Allison, she covers Bethany's tracks. So then Bethany is clear of a murder charge, and now they're kind of like even, like she doesn't owe her anymore. So if she buries Allison and covers this whole thing up, then Bethany will agree not to expose the affair. And she also promises to stay away from Bethany's dad. Bethany is satisfied with this. She's like, that's all good. Great. You know, the affair with my dad's going to stop. Allison's dead. You know, these people are going to finally be out of my life. So she's intending to go back to Radley, literally just get back into bed and pretend like none of this ever happened. As she's walking, Mona sees her and hits her over the back of the head, thinking that she's Allison. So that part plays out pretty much the same as it does in the show, where Mona hits her in a blind rage, and then Melissa buries Bethany, thinking she's Allison and thinking that Spencer hit her. This is so convoluted. So yeah, that element of Mona and Melissa and that whole mix-up is still exactly the same, and they are the ones that end up killing Bethany and burying her, and so Bethany does die that night. It works out a similar way. And the way that I explain Bethany having the same clothes as Allison is that when Allison and Bethany came up with this plot that Bethany would come to the house, Allison gave her a copy of the Allison bracelet. Because that's another plot hole, is how did Bethany get this Allison bracelet? Well, in my version, Allison had gifted it to her She said, look, if you dress exactly like me, wear my clothes, then and wear this bracelet, then you can get out of Radley pretending to be me. And that's exactly what she did. She pretended to be Allison, she snuck out, she was wearing the Allison bracelet and the outfit, and that's why everyone else also mistook her for Allison. And why, when her body is discovered, she's wearing the Allison bracelet, because it's a copy. Now, we're moving on to Cece's third murder, okay? Her third murder. So Cece also ends up killing Jessica. So when we see at the end of A is for Answers, I think it is, before she went to New York to get the plane ticket, she decided to murder Jessica. After Allison had told her what happened, and that Allison, after Allison said, my own mum buried me, I saw her with my own 2 eyes, she was the one who buried me, Cece felt like, okay, well, this is someone else I have to get rid of, because Allison is not safe, again, in Rosewood, until Jessica is gone. She's already gotten rid of Wilden, and so now she's going to get rid of Jessica as well. And yeah, she ends up killing her, burying her in the backyard. She already kind of hated Jessica because she felt like Jessica came between her and Allison's friendship and was disapproving of her. And so now that Allison was going to come back, 1, she didn't want Allison to be in danger, but 2, she also didn't want Jessica getting in the way of them being friends. So she takes her out.
Even the doctor I spoke to agreed that this friendship is toxic.
So are a lot of things.
That girl is no longer welcome in this house.
So we had her kill Wilden, then she killed Jessica, and then she kills Mona when she comes back from Paris. So now we're at the mid-series finale of season 6. And in the show, this is Game Over Charles, with the Cece reveal and all that stuff. For my version of the season 6 mid-series finale, this is when they find out that Ren is A.
What are you doing here?
So they have a kind of similar thing where he's telling the story and everything, so they're finding out all these shocking things, like when they found out that Sarah Harvey was Redcoat, instead they find out that Cece was Redcoat. And he expresses that him and Ezra were friends and that he'd fall in love with Allison. Basically the whole story I just told you, he ends up telling the girls. And it's similar in that way. But this time, instead of it taking place at Radley, this whole thing, this like Ren reveal with all the lies there and Allison there, takes place at the De Laurentiis house. So he's essentially confessing his love for Allison and explaining the whole story and everything that he did. And now this is when he reveals that Cece was in the dollhouse as well. And up until this point, we know, like as the audience, we know that Cece escapes. We see her escape, but Ren thinks that she died in there. So he is furious and he's out for revenge on the liars because he thinks you set this fire in the dollhouse that killed Cece. So he's out for revenge, not realizing that she is still alive. He decides, I'm going to do the exact same thing to all of you. And so he decides to burn down the De Laurentiis house with the liars in it. He's going to protect Allison because, like I said, he loves her, and she also wasn't involved in the dollhouse. She was trying to help the girls get out. Like all of the stuff, the dollhouse, them being sent to prison, Allison being framed for Mona's death, like all of that still happens. But now, like obviously things have just changed, but all of that stuff has already happened. So Allison wasn't in the dollhouse, so he doesn't blame her for Cece's death. And he's like, I want revenge. This whole, like, Jessica had it out for Cece, and obviously Jason had, like, they date. So Jason and Cece had dated. I kept that the same because in my version, they're not related, so it's not weird as hell. They were just normal exes. So he's like, Jason broke Cece's heart. Jessica was horrible to Cece. All this stuff, like, this house needs to burn to the ground, and I want all 4 of you liars in here with it when it burns down, because you all deserve to die in the same fiery death that Cece did. Like I said, not realizing that Cece actually didn't die. They are able to escape. Basically, you know, it's kind of like a whole dramatic scene. The house is burning down, the liars are trying to escape and, like, you know, get to each other. They end up being able to kick Ren off, like kick Ren out and knock him out, and they manage to escape. So all 5 liars are outside of the house as they are watching the De Laurentiis house burn to the ground with Ren inside of it, and this is when Ren dies. I feel like, again, it would be super impactful to have more integral deaths. So I guess similar in like a Ghostface kind of way, when the Ghostface killer gets revealed, they then die pretty much every single time. So I wanted something kind of similar to that, where Ren is revealed to be A, and then he's trying to do this big revenge plot, but it backfires, and the house burns down with him in it, and he kind of dies thinking that he's failed Cece and that his game has failed. And I don't know, I just think that would be really cool. And it also is from the books. So a similar thing happens like this in the books, where A is planning to burn down the house with all the liars in it, but the liars are able to escape. In that version, A actually lives, but in my version, Ren dies. So the kind of like final scene of the mid-season finale would be Ren's funeral, and Cece would actually show up, which obviously would shock everyone, like all the liars, because they're like, the whole reason he did this is because he thought you were dead. And she's like, no, I escaped. I've just been on the run since then. So that's when we realize, like, he died for nothing, essentially.
This isn't happening.
I loved the idea of Charlotte still being evil. I thought that was so good when she and Mona have that encounter in the bell tower, and she basically says, I'm going to destroy all of you, all of this was fake. Gagged. I thought that was incredible. And the fact that they just killed her was so upsetting, because I would have loved to have seen what she would have done. And so this is like my version of that. So she reveals that she's alive at the funeral, and she speaks to the other liars, and she essentially plays the victim card in the same way that Jenna and Sarah Harvey do in the actual show. And she says, this was all Ren, he, coerced me into all of it, like it was all his plan, and I just had to go along with it, and I was a victim too, that whole spiel. She does that whole spiel. And so the liars are kind of like, Ren's gone. As long as this, she says, game over, exactly like she does in the mid-season finale. She said, the game's over. So then they're like, okay. And stupidly, they let her go. Allison kind of vouches for her and says, she was my best friend. You guys decided to forgive Mona after she was A, because she was Hannah's best friend. Why can't you do the same for me? This is my best friend kind of scenario. So they end up letting Cece go. And that's kind of like the closing thing is Ren's funeral, and then all of that. Then we do still have the time jump, because while I don't really like the way the time jump was handled, I do think the time jump was a good idea. So now we've closed the chapter on 6A, and now we're starting with 6B and how I would have written the time jump. So obviously in the show, we have the liars reuniting in Rosewood for Charlotte's hearing. My version is a lot nicer than that, in that the liars are all coming back to Rosewood because it's Maya and Emily's wedding. So she and Emily did reconnect.
Think about us again.
And they have been dating since then. And they obviously got engaged during the time jump, and now everyone's coming back because they get their invites to Emily and Maya's wedding. Another thing that I wasn't a huge fan of, is, with the time jump, is that all the girls seem to really drift apart and not speak to each other anymore. And I didn't want that to happen in my version. So in my version, they actually stay close throughout the 4 years and they keep in contact, because I understand that it kind of was mirroring the pilot in that they had drifted apart after all that time. But I think the girls were so close and their friendship was so strong by the end that it seemed weird to me that they would all just drift apart and go their separate ways. So in my version, they remained close and in contact throughout the 4 years. So I'm going to go through what happened to each of the girls in the time jump individually, and kind of go through how I would have changed their story and how I would have had things be different. So firstly with Aria, In the show, she attends Boston uni, and I would have actually had her attend NYU instead, because NYU has a great writing program. We see this in Gossip Girl. So I decided that that would be a better fit for her than Boston. To me, that just seemed really random. And I also feel like Aria fits the New York vibe really well. She has like edgier style, and I feel like she would kind of like love going into all the cute cafes and the bookstores and like walking down the streets with all the brownstone houses. Like, I just think to me that's so Aria, and like autumn in New York, like that is so Aria. So I had her attend NYU instead of Boston. And I had her graduate with an individualized study in creative and dramatic writing at the Gallatin School of Individualized Study for fiction, poetry, creative nonfiction, screenwriting, and playwriting. So I gave her a degree. I was like, this is my bitch, right? Everything is so Ezra focused in the show with Aria that I wanted her to truly be her own fleshed out character. I was like, she's going to go to New York. She's going to love it there. She's going to be, in bookstores, little cafes. Like, she is a writer. She's, done her degree. I wanted her to just feel so much more fleshed out than she does in the show. So when we meet Aria after the time jump, she is single. Okay, it's okay for the girlies to be single sometimes. And she's working as a book editor in New York, and she's, living in New York, and she's also writing her own book kind of on the side as she's working. So she's loving life. So for Hannah, obviously, I still had her and Caleb move to New York, and I had her attend Parsons and get an undergraduate degree in fashion and design. And I had Caleb start his own tech software company. So they're both like doing very well, and they're still together. Okay, there was no need to break them up. That was so cruel. So in my version, they never broke up. They stayed together throughout the time jump. They were happy. They were living in New York. Aria lives in a brownstone while Hannah and Caleb have a more modern apartment, but Hannah and Aria meet up often for coffee because they kind of, just hop on the subway and go meet each other, which I thought was kind of cute. Hannah and Caleb have a dog called Dot, which is the same in the books. Hannah has a dog called Dot in the book, so I thought it would be really cute to involve them and have them own the dog instead, like together, Hannah and Caleb. I think for me, out of all of the girls, Hannah's future made the most sense to me. Like that she went to New York, she loved fashion, she did all of that. So I kind of kept most of it the same. I just wanted her and Caleb to have stayed together. Now for Spencer. So in the show, she goes to Georgetown, and I had her go to Georgetown, but only for her first year, then transfer to UPenn, and there she studies interior design, not law, because she first showed interest in interior design. I think it's in the pilot. It might even be in a deleted scene. And she talks to Peter about how she would maybe like to do an interior design class, and he kind of discourages it and says that it's not a real thing to study. And also she completely redesigns the barn, and completely redecorated it because she wanted to live in it. So I think it was just such a fun little note about her character, and I think it would have been fun for her to have not gone the route we would have all expected, which would have been like law or government, politics, and for her to do kind of the fun, creative thing she always wanted to do, but didn't feel like she was allowed to do. So I had her study interior design instead. Even though the scene breaks my heart, I am keeping the scene where Toby and Spencer have their pregnancy scare. They break up afterwards. But in my version, I actually would have had Spencer be pregnant and choose to have the abortion, because I just think, I'm not going to go on a whole tangent, but I'm very passionate about women's right to choose. And I think having this in a show would have been so impactful. And Troyan herself is very, very outspoken about women's right to choose. And so I think that would have been a great storyline to have included. Yeah, I'm not going to go on a whole tangent about it, but women should be able to choose what they want to do with their bodies. And I think having Spencer do that would have been good. And Toby supports her through this, and is there for her. But after this experience, they do decide that their life paths are just too different, and she's not sure if she wants kids, and he knows that he wants kids, and he is kind of happy to stay in Rosewood, whereas she isn't. She doesn't want to go back to Rosewood, so they do split up, which is so sad. But, you know, as much as I hated that, you know, all the couples had broken up, I do think it is somewhat realistic. So I decided to keep Hannah and Caleb together, but I did split up Spencer and Toby. So then, while she is finishing her degree at UPenn, she bumps into Alex. Because let me tell you something, Alex deserved so much more. He was such a good love interest. I loved him, and he was written out way too soon, way too early. So I would actually have her reconnect with Alex. He is at UPenn on a scholarship for tennis. I don't even know if they do that, but in my version, they do. And so she met him again while obviously she was doing her interior design, and they reconnected.
I had the crazy thought I could come in and sweep you off your feet. But you swept me off mine, so you owe me breakfast.
Yeah. Sure, we can do that.
So when we meet them, post time jump, Spencer is dating Alex, and they are living together in Philadelphia. And she is an interior designer, and he is a tennis pro. And she actually decorated Hannah and Caleb's apartment for them. I thought that would be such a cute little thing to include. And also because she's an interior designer, I had her oversee the renovation of the Radley. But instead of it being turned into a hotel, I just have it being turned into a better institute for helping those in need, like an actual mental health center. And because Spencer was there, she not only is able to help design it because of her interior design thing, but she can also use that experience to advocate for the patients there. So she is on the board at Radley, as well as having designed it, which I just thought would be a nice like full circle moment for her. And like I said, she and Alex live in Philadelphia together, so it's easy for her to just get the train in, and she always seemed to really like Philadelphia. So I just kind of wanted to keep her there. I don't know, rather than Washington. It just, her being in politics to me felt too predictable, and I wanted her to finally be free of the Hastings pressure and find something that she genuinely enjoyed. And I wanted to bring Alex back because I just loved him, and I feel like he and Spencer deserved more time together. And he was just such a good love interest for her. Like, he was stress-free, there was no drama, he was just sweet, and I feel like he deserved to come back, okay? I feel like he deserved to come back. And I was debating doing this storyline reversed, so keeping Spencer and Toby together and having Hannah and Caleb break up and have her reconnect with Travis, because Travis to me is like, again, he's in that same category as Alex, where I think Travis was so sweet and I think he deserved more of a storyline. But I think Hannah and Caleb would have stayed together. I just believe they would have stayed together. So instead I went for Spencer and Alex rather than reconnecting Hannah and Travis. And then last but not least, we have Emily. So in my version, Emily doesn't attend college. I didn't attend uni. Like, you know, it's pretty mixed between my friends that did and didn't attend uni. And I think it's kind of important to show that there are multiple avenues in life and that college isn't the only option, because pretty much every teen show, everyone always goes to college, I think. I guess aside from Chuck Bass, but he was a millionaire, so he didn't have to. But yeah, I don't know. Not that she went and got kicked out. Like, to me, that just didn't feel like the right fit for Emily. I wanted her to just be like in her I can do whatever I want with my life stage, and she decides she doesn't want to go to college. So she moves to Miami with Maya. To be closer to the beach and the sea. And while she's there, Emily takes up surfing, and she actually becomes a surf instructor. And Maya works in a cafe on the beach. So I just thought this was so cute for them, like, because also Maya like comes from California, and Emily loves swimming, and I just thought this would be a happy medium where that Emily is still on the East Coast with all of them, so that she can, you know, stay in contact with all of them. But they have moved to somewhere that has like beaches and has more sun, and is more kind of like Maya's vibe. And so I thought that would be a kind of like cute in between, was for them to just be living their lives, you know, just happy, engaged, you know, just loving life. For me, I just wanted them to be happy. Those two had been through so much. that I just wanted them to be happy. That was all I wanted for the time jump, was for them to be happy. I also realised I didn't really talk about Alison at all. I didn't talk about her time jump or anything. I think I would have had her stay in Rosewood with Cece. I think because I did kind of understand why they kept her in Rosewood for the time jump in the show, because she had been away for so long. So it kind of made sense for her. She'd been on the run for so long, so now she could just live in Rosewood. So I kind of liked that aspect, but I didn't like the teaching aspect. I didn't think that kind of lined up with Alison at all. So I wouldn't have her become a teacher. I think I would have her in, like, living in Rosewood with Cece, and they've rebuilt the De Laurentiis house after it was burnt down by Ren. And I would have her going into Pennsylvania, because that's like their closest city, to do auditions, and she's kind of trying to become an actress. And that's her path. You know, she feels like she was always really good at storytelling and pretending to be other people, and she loved Breakfast at Tiffany's, and, you know, she kind of loved playing a character because she was Vivian Darkbloom and had these fake IDs and kind of lived this double life. And I think it works for her because, one, she loved doing that, but also she kind of liked to escape her own life in being Alison De Laurentiis, and being an actor allows you to do that, in that she could just escape into these roles and other versions of herself.
I have an audition tomorrow, and Anita looks sort of dull.
So I think that would have been fun to have her, you know, trying to be an actress, maybe going to New York. Maybe her and Cece lived in New York for a year or two while the house was being built, and then they moved back in. But I would have them staying and being close and rekindling. And obviously the girls are wary of Cece, but they're not wary of Alison because they do believe that she's changed. And I think I would have Cece at the Diva Dish again. I think having her in town and like interacting with the girls more regularly, and them being more like skeptical, or it would be Aria and Spencer going in to do some shopping, and then Cece's in there and they have like a bit of a awkward interaction where she's being really nice to them and they still don't know how to kind of perceive that. I think would have been fun, because despite Cece being A in the show, we don't get that much interaction between her and the liars, really. Like one-on-one or that much at all, actually. Now I'm trying to think about it. A fun fact for you is that Alison's yellow top appears in the show 19 times, and that's the amount of times that Cece appears in the show. She appears in 19 episodes. So I would have loved to have had her, like I said, throughout 6 and 7, and kind of stay, or at least through 7. I can't remember like how I planned out the timeline. And having her like interact with the girls more regularly, and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, like I said, while I did like that all the girls left Rosewood, because I do think that was the most realistic choice, because they had all been absolutely tortured there, why would they want to stay there? I didn't like that they weren't close anymore, so I decided to keep all of them on the East Coast and have them all still be like connected and chat to each other. You know, Emily wants Hannah to help choose their like wedding dresses and their bridesmaids dresses, and then Aria, you know, is gonna write she's gonna officiate the wedding because they're like, oh, you know, you write so beautifully, and Spencer's gonna help do the decorations and all that stuff. And I just thought it would be cute to keep them all like intertwined in each other's lives through little like tidbits, like the fact that Spencer designed Hannah and Caleb's apartment in the city, or that Aria and Hannah like meet up for coffee every Thursday because they both live in New York. Like, you know, like cute little things like that I just think are fun. Or that, I don't know, maybe Spencer would have gone to visit Emily and Maya and like stayed with them in Miami, and like Emily could have taught her how to surf. Like, you know, just like fun things like that I think would have been nice, rather than it seeming like the girls did not speak at all during the time jump. Like, none of them had ever met Jordan before, even though he was Hannah's fiance, and no one knew what was going on in Emily's life. And I don't know, it just was a bit weird to me. I didn't feel like that was realistic, so I wanted to keep them more close-knit. The other thing I wanted to add in was a bit of like how I maybe would have styled them, because I've mentioned before that I really cannot stand how Alison was styled in season 7 and season 6. To be fair, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, because season 6 obviously starts with Game on Charles. And I think from that point on, Alison's styling was just genuinely horrendous. And I think she deserved a lot better. And I think they could have dressed her a lot better. And I think they just didn't know how to dress a plus size actress. And so they just didn't. And so much more effort went into the other girls' looks. And I think, you know, and Sasha has spoken about this herself. She felt like they were trying to kind of cover her body up. Rather than trying to, you know, embrace her curves or dress her in. Because I think she could have still dressed like Alison. The blazers, the jumpers, all this horrendous stuff they put her in just made her feel so not like Alison at all. And so I really hated that. And it's a shame because you can see how Sasha dressed at the time. You can see how she dressed on the red carpet, or you can go back on her Instagram and see how she put her own looks when she was like styling herself or being styled by somebody that she, you know, had hired, how she could be styled properly, and she looks amazing. So I think it's really disappointing that at this same time on the show, a show that had such a big budget, they still couldn't dress her. And I don't want to be too harsh on the costume designer, but I think you can really feel that Mandy left the show at this point, because Mandy Line, who was the costume designer pretty much all throughout, I think she left, I don't know if it was partway through season 6 or if it was just for season 7, but she did leave, and she had such a good grasp on who these girls were and how to dress them. And I just think had she stayed for season 7, it would have felt a lot more coherent. And I don't really like how, I mean, I've said many times I don't like how Alison was styled, but I also don't really love how all the girls were styled. It definitely feels like a real disconnect. And a lot of times I feel like that's not how they would have dressed when they had grown up. So I also put together some little like mood boards to show you guys of how I would have dressed the girls. So we'll start with Hannah. And for Hannah's one, I know not everyone does. I loved her like emo arc throughout, was it the end? No, it's season 5. Yeah, season 5, the first like half of season 5, when she has, you know, darker eye makeup and she puts the black streaks in her hair and she wears a lot of dark denim and lace tights and boots and leather and that kind of look. I loved that for her. I thought it was so fun. And even though Aria had a more kind of edgy style in seasons 1 and 2, which for me, Aria season 1 and 2, some of the best costume designing I've ever seen. Like, I wanted every single piece that she wore. But Aria kind of loses that as the show goes on. She wears a lot more bright colours and prints and geometrics and stuff. So seeing true like edgy fashion back in PLL with this little Hannah arc, I loved. And I think it's a shame that then that just went away when that whole plotline went away. I would have personally kept that for her, because the whole point of it was that she was trying to like figure out who she was and that she wasn't just a carbon copy of Alison. And so for her to just go back to how she dressed before that, I don't know. It felt like it would have been better character development for her to be like, okay, maybe I'm not this extreme in terms of like the drinking, but I know who I am, and that edgier style is part of that. I think that would have been really cool. So I have her like with a much like darker color palette, kind of similar to that, but very stylized and a lot more glamorous. So it's not as edgy in terms of like ripped jeans and that kind of thing, but we have like more designer looking dresses, but they're in a darker color palette, or like this leather dress, like this leather two-piece that she wore. I love it. It's so Hannah and like kind of more high fashion, but again, in that more edgier style. I think her hair is absolutely stunning. Like her hair in the time jump is absolutely incredible. Like especially in 6B, it looks insane. So no complaints there. I would have kept her hair the same. I think for her makeup, again, I would have done slightly darker makeup, more like smoky eyes and stuff, but I think a nude lip looks really lovely on her, so that would kind of be the sort of makeup and hairstyling. So pretty similar to what she has, but yeah, I would have gone for a darker colour palette in her clothes. Like here she wears the lace shirt, which is kind of a fun way to bring the lace tights that she wore in season 5, but bring it in a way that she would wear it as an adult kind of thing. So let me know what you think about that. I think it's like kind of like elevated grunge in a way. Then for Aria, my sweet baby Aria. I think she just lost her way. Like fashion wise, she really just lost her way. And I think I love, like I said, I love season 1 and 2 so much. So I really wanted to find outfits that I felt like did resemble some of that style still. So like the leather jacket with the leopard print, iconic, obviously reminds me of one of my most favorite Aria outfits of all time with the leopard cardigan and like the bright top underneath. So I really liked this styling for her. And again, you know, the geometric patterns that we started to see, we've got that in the top one, but it's a bit more adult, like it feels like with the cut, and she also has the blazer and like the chunky boots. So again, feels very Aria, but in a way that is how she would now dress in her 20s. Again, you know, the leather jackets feels very Aria. The only thing I did was change this skirt from blue because pastel palette for Aria is not my favorite for her, to be honest. I much prefer her in like more jewel tones and darker tones, but I don't know if that's just me in general and just kind of what I personally like to see, but those are the outfits I loved from her. I think denim jackets as well feel quite Aria, leather jackets feel very Aria, so I wanted to keep those. These shoes that she wears in season 7, I think, season 6 or season 7, scream Aria to me. Not much from her wardrobe in these later seasons screams Aria to me, but these boots absolutely do, so I loved those. This like florally print top I loved because it reminded me of some of the floral print dresses she used to wear in season 1, like her pilot outfit, and then there's another one, I think it's like season 2 maybe, but I loved that dress as well. So this felt kind of reminiscent of that for me. And then, you know, you have the big earrings and the accessories, like the big necklaces. So very Aria. Absolutely love that. In terms of her hair, let me tell you something. Which episode is it? I think it's Along Came Mary or Along Comes Mary or something. And it's season 7, episode 5, I think. Maybe one of the best that Lucy Hale has ever looked. Like, I don't know what was in the water this day. She's gorgeous all the time, but this episode, like, my jaw dropped when I watched this episode for the first time. The hair, fabulous. Like, I think the short hair, Lucy still has short hair now. I think she really, you know, found her look with that. As much as I love season 1 and 2, Aria's hair, it's fabulous, it's gorgeous, it's the hair I've always wanted for myself. I think her as an adult, like in her 20s, the shorter hair suits her so much. It looks so good. Specifically in season 7, her hair looks amazing. Nothing I would change about it. I think her makeup, you know, just some eyeliner, you know, very neutral, no like bold lips or anything. Very Aria, very cute, you know, like glowy makeup. I would keep the same. Okay, then Spencer. To be fair, I think out of all of them, Spencer was styled okay. I like that, you know, we've still got her kind of classic Spencer items, like her blazers, you know, her button-up shirts. This kind of like light blue button-down dress really reminds me of the one that she wore, I think it was season 4. So like that felt very teen version, adult version, which I did like. And obviously she's got her like signature watch as well. I thought this kind of like tennis style dress was really cute as well, because she did wear a lot of dresses. I feel like it's not something you really associate with Spencer, but she did wear quite a few dresses and her like knee-high boots, which I really loved. And this again feels like a more elegant, like elevated version of that. This like cute polo with the jeans is kind of fun. You know, it shows that Spencer isn't as, you know, prim and proper Hastings pressure that she was in school. So she does wear like jeans now, but it's still stylized in a way that feels very like old money, still feels very Spencer. I don't mind the fringe. I actually really liked the fringe for Spencer. And I also love when her hair's like curled and when you can see more of her like the natural waves in her hair. I always found it so annoying that they only let Troyan's natural hair come out when like Spencer wasn't doing well. Like when she was in Radley, or you know, when she was struggling, she would have no makeup and her hair would be like more curly, like more wavy. And I just think her hair looks so amazing like that, and I thought it was a shame that they never just styled it like that, you know, when she was just normal Spencer. So I think I would have loved to have seen that more. Again, just showing that she's just embracing who she is and she's not trying to be this like perfect curated picture of herself. But yeah, I think this kind of like simple, classic, like timeless pieces, like the plain tops that she has, and then she just has like real nice fitted trousers, or you know, there's no big bold patterns really. I just really think that suits her very well. Specific shout out to the halter neck top. I absolutely loved it. It was amazing. So yeah, and Spencer's very natural, you know, not really any eyeshadow, like no lipstick really, makeup, I think suits her character really, really well. So again, I wouldn't change that. So I think out of all of them, she's probably styled the best. And I would have kept this kind of like neutrals palette for her. I think it suits her really well. I think it always did in the earlier seasons. Lots of, yeah, neutrals like beige and grey. I think, you know, classic. She just looks so good. Then we have Emily. Emily pulls off some really good looks actually in seasons 6 and 7. I think her love of graphic tees, again, I would have definitely had more of those, but I do like how it's paired here. So you have the graphic tee, but then you have the more like skilish leather skirt. I think that's a really fun thing to play around with, like a more formal like adult skirt or trouser, and then the fun graphic tee. I really liked that. I think when I think of Emily, I don't really so much think of skirts or dresses. I think more of like jeans, trousers, like jumpsuits, shorts, that kind of thing. But this specific dress I actually did really like, because it was a t-shirt dress, but it had the crisscross, it had a bit more flair, but it was still, you know, kind of in her color palette. I did really like how this looked. For me, Emily she's blues, like khaki green, earth tones. I really love for her. I think, again, much like Aria, season 7 is one of Emily's best looks in terms of like hair and makeup. Her hair is stunning. I think just the full black dark hair is amazing for her. I'm not a huge fan of like the ombre. I loved when it's just all dark. So I think, again, hair looks incredible in season 7. Wouldn't change it at all. Her makeup, you know, again, very like bronzy, sometimes a darker eye or just like a brown eyeshadow, more neutral lip tones. Again, perfect for her, suit her so well. I love that. And yeah, I think the prints, like the camo print or the flannel, these like ripped looking jumpers, like sweaters, I think are great. Khaki jacket, denim jacket, so good for Emily. So I would have just had kind of more of these looks, definitely. And then lastly, the biggest change obviously will be Alison. So the way I did this was that I went through their outfits for the second half of season 6 and 7. Chose ones that I felt like fit the aesthetic that I would have gone for, and included those. However, with Alison, I could not find a single outfit that I liked. Or that I thought would represent my version of Alison very well. So instead I went through Sasha's Instagram and I chose my pictures from there instead. And honestly, we were robbed. Sasha is so gorgeous. So all these pictures I went and I chose from around when they were filming 6B and 7 up until like now. So I didn't use any younger pictures of her or younger outfits. It's all older ones. And I think having like a darker blonde would have been really, really gorgeous for her, especially because Hannah's very platinum blonde in the later seasons. So I think having Allison stay more of like a honey blonde, gorgeous. Also that fringe they gave her, never, not happening in my version. I would have kept the really girly, you know, cutesy colour palette for Allison. Lots of pink, baby yellow, baby blues, florals. The way she dressed in the flashbacks and like when she very first like came back, she had some really nice floral dresses and print tops. I would have gone 100% down that route. I think she could have still been the it girl and she just would have looked so gorgeous. I think, you know, some like glittery eye makeup and like pink lip gloss and just very Allison. I feel like we lost the core of Allison. So I definitely would have had her in like some cute dresses and cute tops. Yeah, just very her, very, you know, on trend, very fashionable, things that you would like see in magazines and stuff, because I feel like that part of her character got lost because her and Hannah were very similar in that way. And then it seemed all of the attention, like in terms of fashion, magazines, makeup, all that kind of went to Hannah when they kind of shared those interests in the earlier seasons. So I would keep that as still like quite an integral part of Allison's character. And I just think she could have been dressed so cute. She could have been dressed so nice. And I think it would have been fun because it would have showed that Ali that we knew was still in there in this world of social media. Like maybe she has quite a following on social media potentially. I feel like influencers weren't as it wasn't a sought after a job as it kind of is now back in 2016-17 when this would be set. But maybe she's kind of like in the infancy of that, you know, something like 5k followers or nothing huge, but she does post and people, you know, want to know what she's up to and what she wears. Like maybe she does like outfit of the day videos, like things like that. I think would have been kind of fun to see because that's something Allison would have loved, like the validation and adoration from total strangers. Like Allison, the Allison we know would have been all over that. That is how I would have dressed the girlies. That's the aesthetic I would have had for them. Let me know if you agree or if you would have chosen something completely different. I would love to know. So then in terms of like plot line for post time jump, obviously A is back and they start getting texts again and Ezra does still own the brew because obviously he had to leave teaching, so he buys the brew instead. And, you know, it upsets Arya and the other girls that he, you know, seems to be kind of living absolutely fine. He's got this thriving business and, you know, living his best life after everything that he did to her, which unfortunately is how a lot of victims, you know, have to live, like seeing that happen. And A was able to get a hold, the new A was able to get a hold of the manuscript for Ezra's book, because we actually see this in the show when Arya throws the book. A goes and picks it up but never does anything with it. So my version, A, you know, has the manuscript and ends up publishing it. So or like releasing it online or something like that, releases the whole manuscript, which obviously exposes Ezra's relationship with Arya, and because of that, he is sent to jail. Round of applause. Because now there's enough evidence against him, because in this book he literally confesses to 2 relationships with minors. And that paired with Arya's statement that she made is enough for him to go to jail. So we love that. I think for Ezra, because I said, you know, he owns the brew and he loses his teaching license, I think this Nicole storyline could still exist in my version, to be honest. And then when she comes back, she's reunited with him, only to then have him taken away, like when the book comes out and he ends up going to jail. Like, they could have done something like that, maybe. Because I think him and Nicole together made absolute sense because she was his age. And they could have done a thing of, oh, but he's changed and he's, you know, become a different person. And obviously she didn't know him when he was with Arya, so she's really confused by this whole thing and feels like she doesn't really know who he is. And I think that could have made for some really emotional scenes. Because you wouldn't have Arya being devastated that he was going to jail. So in turn, having Nicole be devastated that he was going to jail and find out all of this, I think would have been like really emotional, and some really good acting could have come from those like scenes like that. Because there is that play in PLL of good and evil and morality and the different kind of like gradient of that and how different people react to different things. So I think that really would have been interesting. But she's kind of confused. She's like, why would A do this? Again, in that same way from season 1, where it seemed like A was helping her relationship with Ezra. She's like, is A my frenemy? How is this working? I'm going to now explain to you who A is. So my final A is Allison. Yep, it's Allison. It's actually Allison and Cece. So during the time jump, Cece and Allison reconnected because Allison stays in Rosewood and so does Cece, and they reconnect and they become super close, and Allison kind of drifts away from the other girls during this time jump. Allison loved attention. We know that about her. Like, she loved attention, and she loved having her like adoring followers, the liars, and making other people's lives hell. So Cece then showing that she was willing to kill for Allison 3 separate times, lest we forget. How quickly we forget.
How quickly we forget.
That she was willing to kill for her 3 separate times to torture the other liars to avenge her, right? Because she and Ren were like torturing the liars because of how they were happy that Allison was gone and how they moved on from her death. So she's like that manipulative, evil part of Allison that we see in the flashbacks starts to come back out because Cece is playing into it and it's bringing it back out. Like, that is appealing to her. The fact that Cece was willing to do anything for her, would do anything for her. She loves that.
Those bitches were happy that you were gone. And that really, really pissed me off. I mean, those girls were supposed to be your friends.
She's my sister. I'd murder somebody for her.
Lord, help the mister who comes between me and my sister.
Because the liars, she couldn't control them anymore when she came back. They had moved on and they were way too close. You know, even in the flashbacks, the liars were always more hesitant and unsure of Allison's, you know, bully side, you know, especially with the Jenna thing. They really did not want to do that. Whereas Cece is gung-ho. Like, Cece's ready. So now she's found someone who is willing to be as vicious as her, but also take direction from her. So this is kind of like the perfect storm. She has kind of found that in Cece, kindred spirits. So in my version, Allison is the mean girl that she always was, which is exactly what should have happened. For me, it breaks my heart the amount of potential that Allison had as a character that they did not follow through with. And it would have been so amazing to see proper bitchy Allie come out in those last seasons and for her to be A. I think that would have just been incredible. So that's what I've decided to go with. You know, that kind of like mean girl spirit that made everyone so infatuated with her character in the first place. Like, she's Alison De Laurentiis. She's so unbelievably iconic. Like, she's the it girl of the 2010s. Like, come on. And so I have her appear to be nice to the liars throughout the rest of season 6 and season 7. She pretends to be their friend, you know, and she does appear to be nice to them at times, but it is purely to manipulate them and further her plans as A. It's all a big game. Like with Cece, like with Ren, like with Mona, it's all a game. And now Allison is like, this is kind of what I always wanted. I always wanted to play, you know, puppet master and the blackmail and everything, And she is just mad that she didn't come up with it first, that Mona came up with A. But now she's like, this is my turn to be A and to take control. Kind of throughout the second half of season 6 and 7, she does interact with the girls, goes to some of their brunches or has chats with them and seems to be invested in the group, but also because she does take quite a bit of time away in season 7 and the second half of season 6 anyway. Like there's a lot of times where Ali's out of town. So I think I probably would have kept that just to make it feasible that she could have been A, because she was not around as much. She doesn't hang out with the girls all together, or like when they get A-techs, and she doesn't receive A-techs in this version. So I think it would make sense that she wasn't there all the time, and then in that case it would be, oh, she's filming something, or she's gone to do a few auditions in New York, so she's going to be there for a couple of days, something more like that. And when she first came back, season 5, she did try to be nice, she did try to make amends, but after the lies all turned on her and sent her to jail for Mona's murder, she was like, okay, we're done. She cut ties with them from then, but they didn't know that, and she was ready for revenge.
Turn around slowly.
Don't say I didn't warn you.
And I did, because I know that people really love the Emily-Allison dynamic. It is still, in my version, it's still kind of there in that Allison did love Emily, and she finds Emily the hardest to let go of out of all of them. When she decides that she's out for revenge, she finds Emily the hardest to let go of. But after seeing her and Maya reunited, she's like, you girls sent me to jail, and now Maya's back and Emily is obviously in love with her. She's never going to love me the way that she loves Maya. So that's it. We're done. So, like I said, Aria's kind of like confused about the motive. She's like, did A release this book to help me to get the conviction that I wanted? But in reality, this is not the case. Anything that Allison does that accidentally helps someone else is a pure accident, is pure coincidence. She released this book as, her own way of getting back at Ezra for ending things with her the night that she disappeared. She's just mad that he, figured it out and ended things with her and fell in love with Arya and forgot all about her. So that's why she does it. She just does it for revenge on Ezra. The fact that it helped out Arya, purely coincidental. So like I said, I have A as being Allison and Cece together, but in my version, they do recruit Jenna, because I feel like Jenna, again, such a good villain, like Melissa, not utilized enough in that villain sense. So they recruit Jenna, and Jenna's motive is that she's never forgiven the girls for blinding her. And in a flashback, you remember when Allison went to visit Jenna? It is then revealed that she told Jenna that it was the other liars, that she had nothing to do with blinding her. So all these years, Jenna was never mad at Allison because she thought it was just the other 4 girls that did this to her. And she still thinks that now. So she's happy to join Cece and Allison in getting back at the girls because she believes that they blinded her and she still wants revenge on them. So then they become like a kind of subset. So you have like Allison, who's like the head of everything. She's the mastermind. Then you have Cece again in that kind of like red coat, like role of doing the dirty work. And then you have Jenna, who's like their little recruit. Again, kind of like Lucas or Melissa, but she knows what she's getting into. But what Jenna doesn't realize is that Allison and Cece are playing her. They just want her to do these little jobs for them, but ultimately she is on what I'm referring to as their hit list. So the kind of end game of the series is that Allison has a hit list of people that she wants to get rid of. So it's starting with Kenneth, her dad, then Paige, then Lucas, then Noel, and then Jenna, and finally all 4 liars. She wants to kill them all off. Basically anyone that ever wronged Allison, went behind her back, snitched on her, anything like that, she wants to get revenge. Kind of like how Cece did. She's like, she wants to get revenge on the whole town and like destroy the whole town. That's what is the end game here for Allison and Cece. And in my version, Jenna and Noel are together still. because I think they were actually a really good couple in terms of how evil they both were. I thought it just really worked. And so because Noel also believes that Jenna was blinded by the girls, he's happy to, you know, join in. And Cece and Allison allow him to join the A-team while it's beneficial for them. But again, Jenna and Noel don't know that Allison and Cece are going to turn on them. Jenna and Noel would be the first to reveal themselves to the liars as being on the A-team, or as being A. And we have the same scene where they attempt to capture them in the school for the blind. But instead, Allison and Cece take this as their opportunity to get rid of Noel and to take him out. So they're the ones that push him onto the axe, and the same thing happens. His head comes off, Bob's down the stairs, and they tell Jenna that it was the liars. So now Jenna's like, not only did they blind me, they've killed my boyfriend, because they want to keep her on side. Like, they want to keep using her until they don't need her anymore. So now they've got Noel out of the way, and they're still, you know, keeping Jenna on by keeping her hatred of the liars fueled. And she's, you know, devastated by his death. So they all leave. The three of them leave and escape the school for the blind. His head bobs down the stairs and lands at the liars' feet, as it did before. But it's all four of them this time. And it's like, as horrific as it is to see Noel's head on the floor, they're also kind of relieved because they're like, right, now one half of A is gone. We only have Jenna left to deal with and to finish off. And also, like, throughout season 7, the first half of season 7, I wanted to kind of bring back the fun redcoat element of how they would see like flashes of blonde and think, is that Allison? But this time it's going to be a brunette in a red coat. And they're going to see like flashes of her and they think she's A. So then when it's revealed that it was Jenna and Noel together, they're like, well, this makes perfect sense. The brunette we've been seeing is Jenna. But it's actually not Jenna. It's Allison as Vivian Darkbloom, because they still believe that Allison is one of them. They're like, Allison, you know, is still part of our group. She's still our friend. She's not going to come after us. But she is. And she's dressing up as Vivian Darkbloom so that she can go around Rosewood and not be recognized by the girls when she's, you know, up to her A shenanigans. I also have that Allison killed Ian on purpose. Like, she went back and finished it off, because in the show, she pushes Ian. Ian then is able to escape, runs, and ends up shooting himself. And that's, you know, how he dies. I have a whole video on my channel of the story of Ian Thomas's death and kind of explaining it more, because it is kind of confusing in the show. But that is what happens. But in my version, Allison chases after him and she, you know, follows him out of the church, corners him in the barn and shoots him. She kills him as revenge for what he did to her, you know, pretending that he was in love with her and all this stuff when actually he was with Melissa and all that sneaking around in the NAT club stuff. It's revealed that she actually killed him. Because I wanted there to be a kind of invisible string, Taylor Swift style, in that Cece has already killed for Allison before. We know that. But I wanted there to be a reveal that Allison has also killed before. And again, she killed for Allison. Like, Allison kills for herself. So this whole, like, hit list thing kind of started way back in season 1 with Ian. He was kind of the first person on the hit list before it was even a thing. And now she's like, right, Ian was crossed off years ago. Wilden's crossed off. Jessica's crossed off. I mean, Ren didn't really count, but he's dead anyway. So now they're like, Noel's crossed off. This is who's left. We're going to go. Because, yeah, obviously, and Mona, I forgot about that. Mona's crossed off. Like, she wronged Allison. So now we just have Kenneth, who, I don't know. I just hated Kenneth. I just wanted to kill him all. Paige, who obviously she had that feud with Emily over. Lucas, who she bullied and, you know, couldn't stand. And then, you know, you have Noel, who kind of left her for, you know, Jenna. It was all kind of like a double cross thing. And then Jenna, who was a threat to Allison and she hated. And then you have the liars, who obviously turned her in to jail and all that stuff. So that's kind of like the justification for her hit list. And because Cece loves Allie and is like her best friend and is willing to do anything for her, she's like, yeah, I will help you get rid of all these people. I will do that for you. So then the two of us can just thrive. You know, we can play the game and we can, you know, do all this stuff and kill off these people and run this town and ruin this town, and then we'll flee to Paris or something. You know, that's kind of like their idyllic version of how this is going to go down. So like I said, Allison is still pretending to be part of their group at this point. She's still pretending to be cool with them until the end of season 7, though it's not really the same because Hannah didn't really forgive her for bullying her, and, you know, Emily didn't really forgive her for messing with her feelings like that, you know, like we see in the flashbacks and kissing her and saying it was for practice. So she is, like, as you're watching it, she's not as involved as the other girls. Like, she's not at the forefront of the show, but she still appears very nice. So I think it would be a good reveal because it would be shocking in that you would think, oh no, but I thought Allison had changed. And then you would get kind of like the Charlotte reveal with her and Mona in the bell tower of, oh no, she's actually been evil this whole time. Like, that would be so crazy. But it's also someone that you know. It's not a new character. It's not, do you know what I mean? It's also not out of the realm of possibility because we know Ali was a bitch in the flashbacks. Like, she was capable of that. But she had changed and she had grown. So to then find out that none of that was true and that Allison was still evil, that would have been so good. It would have been so good. I feel like this kind of goes against a lot of TV formatting in that the big reveals happen in the finale. I would actually have Cece and Allison being revealed as A in the penultimate episode. Okay. Or if they still had the 2-hour special, instead of, you know, Alex Drake being revealed right at the very end of the first half, so what would have been like the penultimate episode, you know, like halfway through, instead of having Alex Drake be revealed halfway through the season finale, I would have Cece and Allison be revealed at the beginning, because then you've got 2 hours to play with where you know who A is. Like, that's amazing. Because obviously I've explained to you why Allison does what she does and that she and Cece are behind this whole thing. But if you were actually watching it, you wouldn't know that until the second to last episode. Like, when you're watching it, you would just think, oh, Allison's still their friend, and, you know, Cece, she's grown and she's fine, and she, you know, you don't really see her that much, so you don't really think of her when you're trying to think of suspects. But then at the beginning of Till Death Do Us Part, bam, straight in, you find out that Cece and Allison are A. And only the audience knows. So not the girls, they don't know yet, but the audience, it's revealed to them at the beginning of Till Death Do Us Part that Cece and Allison are A together. Because I just think that, firstly, that is so shocking because you're not expecting it to be revealed at the beginning. But then also, you now know. Like, you get to watch the girls figure it out and you get to see them be A, because that's the only thing that is kind of missing with the reveals. I feel like Mona less so, because you do get to see her kind of be A-ish in season 3. But like with Cece and then with Alex, you don't get to see them be A. You don't get to see like them sneaking around and them setting up the traps and all that kind of stuff. And I just think that would have been so interesting to see. So that's why I have the reveal happen at the beginning of the 2-hour special. Because then you have the tension of watching, like the audience is watching the liars interact with Allison and Allison being all nicey nice to them and them, you know, talking to her and confiding in her. But we know that she's A. Like, I feel like that would have just been so good. Like, we know that she's dodgy as hell. Like, when Toby was revealed to be on the A team, and then you would watch him interact, like, with Spencer, and you would watch him interact with the other girls, and you'd be like, but he's evil, but he's A. I would love to have replicated that in the 2-hour series finale. In my version, the series finale opens in the lair, in Cece and Allison's lair. And it is actually a basement underground. So because the De Laurentiis house was burnt down at the end, at the mid-season finale of season 6 by Ren, they had to rebuild the house. And in rebuilding the house, they put a layer underneath, so in the basement. And it's kind of similar to layers we've seen before. Like, there's loads of, you know, it's covered in photos of the girls and different like games that they're coming up with or different things. Because I loved the board game. I thought the board game was genius. And that was such a cool thing. So I would still have the board game. I would have the girls having to, you know, do these challenges and all this stuff, and then at the end of each challenge, instead of them getting a puzzle piece, somebody else would die. Somebody else on the hit list would die. You know, kind of like in Original Sin, where each of the final girls like had to do a they had to do a challenge, and I would have them make them so difficult that the girls couldn't complete them. So like, I don't know, Hannah has to like save Lucas or something, but the intent there is always for Lucas to die. So no matter what she does and no matter how she tries to help him, he's still going to die at the end because he's on Alison's hit list and Alison wants to kill him. And yeah, it would be the girls trying to save these people, like moving around the board game, playing these games, trying to save the people that are on the hit list, but ultimately they can't. But it's not their fault because the game isn't set up like that. Like kind of like Saw in a way, like different traps and things that they're never going to win, but they don't know that. So they're trying their best. They're trying to save these people and they're just getting more and more defeated each time that this board game lights up. So at the opening of the finale, it is the layer that I said about. There's pictures of the girls everywhere that Alison has taken. You know, like the mysterious photos that Jason found that were really close up of Arya's face. Those pictures are in there. So that plot hole makes sense. So that's all tied up. That's fine. Nothing to worry about there. And Alison tells Cece, oh, I took these pictures, because that storyline just went nowhere. So in my version, those pictures are up and there's pictures of the other girls as well in that same like black and white zoomed in style. And she tells Cece that she took them of all the girls, you know, always feeling like they were her dolls. So the lair is covered in these pictures. There's different pieces and like of, you know, different games and challenges that they've done. You can see different like props or things that were used in them. And they have their plan of the board game and their hit list. It's like crossed off. And the only people left on the hit list now are Jenna, Emily, Arya, Spencer, and Hannah. That's it. So we're in the end game now, in the finale. And we get the reveal that they are they're the ones that are behind this. And I just think it would be so good to then watch the rest of the finale knowing that. I don't know. I'm interested to see what you guys think. Do you love the big shocking reveal? Or do you like the idea of being able to actually see it play out and know who A is before the liars do? Because we kind of got that with Alex Drake a little bit, but I feel like it would have been so much better if it had been like the whole episode, or that she had been pretending to be Spencer for much longer and we got to see that. So like when the final location is revealed on the board game, it actually sends them to the dollhouse, like to the original one from season 5. It was like cordoned off by like police and stuff, but ultimately it was just left and abandoned. And so they get lured back down there. It still looks the same, but it's just a bit run down because obviously no one's taking care of it. So like the plants are dead and like the rooms just are all dusty and everything is like cobwebs. It's just been left, but it is the same dollhouse. So they get lured back down there and they have kind of like flashbacks to when they were in the dollhouse originally. And it's just a very like full circle moment, like all 4 of them down there. And they're like, where's like Alison, like shouldn't she be here as well? And they're all just kind of confused. And they're in Alison's living room, like her old living room, but like I said, everything's like dusty and hasn't been looked after properly. And this is when Alison comes in and she is playing, you know, she's playing innocent. She's like, guys, you're here as well, like what is going on? Like I'm so confused and I got this text to come here. And they're like, oh, it's A, like, you know, they've been playing this board game with us, and they explain everything to her and she's like, what is like, I'm so confused, because like I said, she's not part of the board game. She's not really part of the core group. Like she has drifted, but she's still nice to them. So they're kind of like, you know, they didn't tell her about A because they didn't want her to be sucked back in. But obviously we know she knows about A. So they're explaining everything. They're like, I'm so sorry. Like we should have told you, but we didn't want you to be involved. But now, you know, A's brought you into this as well. And we don't know what's happening. Yeah. So this is when Cece and Jenna come in. And so the girls are like, oh my God, like Cece was still A this whole time. And Alison pretends to be shocked. And they're like, I can't believe this. Like, we were so stupid in letting her go. Like, we really thought that she would change. And obviously they knew Jenna was evil. So they're like, of course, this makes so much sense. It was Cece and Jenna and Noel. And that is when Allison, like they're in a line together, all 5 of them. That's when Allison steps forward and goes over to Jenna and Cece. And the girls are like, no, like, Allie, what are you doing? Don't go over there. Allison goes over to and stands in front of Jenna and kills her right in front of the liars. And she just drops to the floor. And they're all like stunned, like absolutely shocked. And Allison turns around and then they realize, oh my God, it wasn't Jenna. It was Allison and Cece this whole time. And Allison's been lying to us this whole time. And so, you know, Allison then, she does her whole evil monologue as they all do and explains like, you guys turned on me and you left me and Cece was the only one who was here for me and, you know, all this stuff. Because like the dollhouse obviously had that thing where it could like gas them and like make them pass out. So they both put on a gas mask, Cece and Allison, and then they release the gas to make the girls pass out. And so while they're passed out, they put them in their beds. I feel like this is actually really dark. But like, I feel like season 7 got pretty dark, so I feel like it's okay. But they put them all in their own rooms, in their own beds. Like Spencer's in her bed, Emily's in her bed, Ari's in her bed, you know. And their idea is to make it look like a suicide pact. So they decide, okay, we're gonna kill them all 4 of them. We're gonna leave, and they'll just think, we leave a note and make it seem like the girls couldn't cope with the trauma anymore, the torture, it was too much for them. So they came back to the dollhouse to all be together and to all just, you know, be able to be free from all of it. Right? Which is very dark and twisted, I understand. But that's the plan. And then, as Allison is about to leave Emily's room, Emily, because she was like I said, she was the one that it was the hardest for Allison to let go of. Like, she did love her. So Emily is able to manipulate like the last shred of Allison that still loves Emily and knocks her out long enough to escape the room and shut the door. So then she goes and frees the other girls and they all start running again because they're like, well, we know how to get out of here now. We know where the hatch is. That's the same way we came in. Let's just go. For me, I feel like during like season 3, 4, and 5, Spencer definitely suffered the most at the hands of A. So in my version, this version of A is Cece and Ren. And because I think Spencer just suffered so much at the hands of them, I wanted to give her the moment to get revenge. So she gets lost, like split off from the other girls, and she ends up in the room with the well, where Mona was kept, and Cece is in there, and the 2 of them fight, and then, and Spencer ends up accidentally pushing her into the well. Yeah. And she falls to the bottom of the well, and we're not sure if she's alive. And then the girls come in and they're like, it's kind of, you know, they've done this a couple times where they're like, oh, you know, you did what you had to do. Like, she was going to kill all of us. Like, you know, let's go. So Spencer is able to kill, she is able to have that kind of face-to-face with Cece, who had tortured her so much. And, you know, she accidentally pushes her into the well. And we're left kind of not knowing if she actually died from the fall or if she was just knocked out. So we don't know. Then, so the girls come and they get Spencer and they all like run out together, and they're able to escape like up through the hatch, and they're out onto that grass like bit again. They're out of the dollhouse, and Emily looks at the door because it's like open still, and she says, you know, Allie is still down there, and Hannah, in typical, you know, brass Hannah fashion, is like, and she can die down there for all I care. So they shut the doors and they call the police, and the 4 of them stand there and watch as Allison is taken away. The police go down into the bunker, they bring Allison back out, and And so they're bringing Alison out, and before they're able to, before they put the handcuffs on her and put her into the car, she turns to the girls. The liars are all like stood there, and she does the shush one more time to all of them before she gets put in the police car. I feel like I ate that. Like, she does the shush and she smiles, and then they put her into the police car. So then after that, then it's Emily and Maya's wedding, and Toby is Emily's best man, which I just think would be really cute. And because Spencer is a bridesmaid along with the other girls, that kind of reunites Toby and Spencer, and they're kind of like, oh, like, hi, haven't seen each other for a long time, and those feelings are still kind of there. And then Alex is actually offered a, amazing tennis opportunity in Europe. So kind of like mirroring how he exited in season 1. And he, asked Spencer to go with him to Europe, and she says that she can't and she has to be there for the girls. And so they break up like amicably, and she says, you should do this, you should go, this is such an amazing opportunity. And instead of him being angry at her like he was in season 1, he, agrees, and they kind of part mutually, and he moves to Europe to do his tennis thing. And then Spencer goes to see Toby where he lives now, and she's like, oh my god, this house, is beautiful, and it's the house from the show. And that's when he confesses that he built the house for Spencer, hoping that one day she would come back to Rosewood, and they could be together again. Like, how freaking cute would that have been? So then they do get back together, and while at the wedding, so yeah, I'm kind of like summing up the stories here. So that's how Spencer and Toby end. They reconnect at Emily's wedding. They aren't interested, in marriage or kids for right now. They're just happy living together in the house that Toby built, and kind of taking life as it comes, and, doing trips. So Toby is still doing his like carpentry business, and he builds the houses, and then Spencer does the interior design. I think that would be so cute if they had like a little business together. So that's how Toby and Spencer finish, because again, I think it's important to show multiple options in life. You don't always have to get married, you don't always have to have kids, like you don't have to do it that way. So I thought it would be nice to have that kind of path for them. So that's how they finish up. Then Jason and Aria reconnect after she bumps into him in Rosewood, while, I don't know, maybe she's like picking up the flowers for Emily's wedding or something like that, and she ends up bumping into him, and they rekindle. And this was the only thing I changed kind of from season 2. My camera died and I had to wait for it to charge, so now it's like dark, but luckily I'm almost at the end. So yeah, in my version, Aria has a crush on Jason in season 2, but they don't kiss or anything. He doesn't entertain it, because he obviously is older in season 2. And then when they meet again, at the end of season 7, obviously she is now like in her 20s and he's also in his 20s. And I just thought their chemistry was so good. Like Drew Van Acker and Lucy Hale, their chemistry was unmatched. It was amazing. So I think in my version, they end up together, and yeah, they bump into each other in Rosewood, and they like end up getting together, and like he goes and lives with her in her place in New York, and she ends up publishing her own book that she has been working on, and she gets told that it's going to be made into a movie, and obviously, life's just good for her, because I wanted that for Aria so bad. In my version, she's pretty much single for the most part, like pretty much all of season 7, and season 6, like once she ditches Ezra. Maybe she dates like, I don't know, like that Riley guy, or like Jake I really liked as well, so I think she could date him for a little while as well, but ultimately it would be her and Jason in the end. And I think as sad as it was that Aria couldn't have kids, I think it was an important story to include. So while they, like when we kind of see them getting together, like they're still kind of new, so they aren't ready to have kids now, but they have, options in the future, and they say, you know, they would love to foster or adopt together at some point. Jason's still doing like his charity work stuff and like helping to build homes and things like that. So, you know, Aria will go with him sometimes. And then, yeah, like I said, she publishes her book. The book gets made into like a movie. And then all of the girls go to the premiere, which again is something that kind of happens in the books, but it's Hannah starring in the movie in the books. So I thought that would be, I just want Aria to thrive and succeed. And I just love her. And I feel like she was done such a disservice in the show. Then like Emily and Maya, they, you know, have their like big, beautiful wedding. I just don't think Aria and Ezra deserved the big, beautiful wedding. I would have given it to Spencer and Toby, or I would have given it to Hannah and Caleb. But obviously in my version, we have different couples, and I would have loved for Emily to have that happy ending with Maya and to have the big, beautiful wedding. I just think that would have been so perfect. And I don't really have like a big career change for them because I think they're happy. Like Emily's happy being a surf instructor and Maya's happy, you know, like being at the cafe. Maybe she's like a manager or she ends up part owning it or something. But I think it's cute that they're just living their lives and they're just happy with that, because that's also okay. Then lastly, obviously we're going to talk about Hannah and Caleb. So I would have it that at Emily and Maya's wedding, there is a pregnancy test in the bathroom, kind of similar to the finale, the Gossip Girl finale, where it's like the pregnancy test, but you don't know whose it is. Kind of similar to that. I think would be fun, maybe, or maybe even if that happened earlier in the series finale, like that there was a pregnancy test, but we didn't know whose it was, but then it's revealed that it is Hannah's, and that her and Caleb are going to have a baby, which would be really cute. I always loved that ending for them, so I would keep that the same. After Emily and Maya's wedding, Caleb ends up proposing to Hannah, and she accepts. And they decide to move back to Rosewood to be closer to Ashley. So they move out of New York to be closer to Ashley, and Hannah decides to open her own boutique. She buys Diva Dish, which is where the like fashion boutique that Cece worked at, and she like renames it, and she ends up putting her own clothes in there, and her business like thrives in the town, and then people can come in and buy her clothes, which I just think is so cute. And she has a little line of baby clothes as well, because obviously she and Caleb have their baby now. Some other like tidbit things, I would have that Paige did return in the time jump, but only to die. Sorry, Queen. Because like I said, she was on Alison's hit list. I would have that there was a trial for Ezra, and that Aria testified in the trial, and that all the girls, you know, their partners, the parents, the teachers, everyone is in that courtroom, kind of similar to what we saw with Alison's trial. So it would be a similar like set, but she would testify and he would obviously be sat there, but pretty much everyone that we know from the show, like Aria's parents, Mike, you know, like I said, the girls' parents, their partners would be sitting in the benches and, you know, there to support her. I just think that would have been such a beautiful scene to have. So I would have that, yeah, he gets convicted and he goes to jail. I also would have that Wayne doesn't die, because that just seemed brutal for absolutely no reason. So in my version, Wayne is at Emily and Maya's wedding and he gets to give Emily away, because I just think that would be so cute. I also have that Ella ends up with somebody else. She's with somebody else and she's happy. Maybe Zach isn't an asshole and they just get married and they live in Vienna together and they're happy, because I loved that for her. I just hate that she went back to Byron after he was so horrible. He doesn't deserve Ella. So in my version, maybe Zach isn't awful and she ends up marrying him, or she just marries somebody else, but Ella is happy and she's not with Byron. Byron regrets ruining their marriage and he's unhappy, because that man doesn't deserve happiness. I also would have loved to have a Halloween and a Christmas special in the 7th season, because obviously it was only 20 episodes. I would have upped it to 22 episodes, and included a Halloween special and a Christmas special. I think that would have been really fun to do for the final one. I also would have loved to have done a Valentine's themed episode because they never did that. I think that would have been really fun, like little Valentine's themed notes. Like that would have been so spooky and so cool. Then to also tie up another huge plot point, I would have that Marion Kavanaugh, Toby's mum, died in an unfortunate accident. She fell to her death. She got out up onto the roof and she fell to her death, but it was covered up by Radley and labelled as a suicide. And, you know, this is kind of uncovered during the Radley renovations, like when it all gets changed and they find old files in the basement. So Toby is able to know that she didn't choose to leave him, but also there's no Wilden, there's no Bethany, there's no any of that. It was just a horrible accident that then got made even worse by the fact that they tried to cover it up. So that solves that plot hole. I wanted to add in that I think one thing that's really missing from the second half of season 6, but also predominantly season 7 for me, is the girls' friendship. That's like my favourite thing about the whole show. So I think it's a real shame that we don't get to see that as much in the 7th season. Especially with, you know, Arya turning on them kind of to join the A team, and she's so wrapped up in Ezra. Like, I mean, she is pretty much the entire show. But I think especially in season 7, she's so separate from the other liars, and I really didn't like that. I think they're all just kind of really in their relationships and in their own separate things that they have going on. So I kind of missed that friendship aspect that we get a lot more of in the first and second season. So I think it would have been fun to maybe have them like staying together. I think it makes sense that obviously Spencer was staying at the barn. But I think because obviously Arya, Emily and Hannah no longer lived in Rosewood, it would have been kind of fun to see them rent somewhere together, because we never really got to see the liars live together properly aside from Hannah and Emily, and I loved their dynamic, and we got to see a little bit more of that when Emily moves into the loft with Hannah, Lucas's loft. So I would keep that the same. I think that's really fun.
Another thing that I thought of while editing was that I would have some kind of Sparia storyline. That, for me personally, they are my favourite friendship. I just love their dynamic and I think they're so fun. So even though it would probably make no sense, maybe I would have Spencer and Arya live together at some point. I just think that would be so fun. Or, I don't know, some kind of something where they would have more scenes together, because Team Sparia was everything. And because a lot of the friendship scenes, we didn't get that many, it means that we also didn't get too many Spencer and Arya scenes, and it also broke my heart when their friendship kind of fell apart because of what AD made Arya do. So instead, I would just have them thriving, and yeah, maybe live together for a little bit, or like Arya moves into the barn or something. Maybe she, you know, loses her editing job and she's can't afford her apartment in New York anymore, so she, you know, kind of doesn't know what she's gonna do, you know, like more storylines for her outside of the A stuff that obviously isn't anything to do with Ezra because he's not around in this one, like as a relationship thing. So that could be kind of fun. Maybe she, loses her editing job and she has to decide to just bet on herself and her book and try and get it published. And while she does that, she stays at the barn with Spencer. And that, I feel like, could make for some fun, like, scenes between the two of them. Yeah, I just love them. So, Team Sparia forever.
Come on, Team Sparia, old time's sake.
Or maybe just like Arya and Emily together, because maybe, I don't know, Caleb was kind of a big part of the show. So maybe he and Hannah would still move into their own little flat, and I think maybe we could have Emily and Aria live together like for a little bit, like maybe if, you know, because I think realistically, because I have Maya kind of like working in a cafe, it wouldn't be, they made it seem like so easy for the girls to just take time away from their jobs and just come back to Rosewood. So I think maybe to make it more realistic, maybe, you know, Maya would be featured a little bit less just because she would be at work in Miami, so she wouldn't come to live in Rosewood. Whereas because, you know, Emily's like a surf instructor and Aria, you know, maybe can work from wherever because she's an editor, it would make sense for them to like get a little place together. I think that would have been really fun and cute to see like that dynamic. And I think I just would have had the girls interact a lot more. And I think with, you know, Emily kind of in my version planning her wedding and, you know, they just, in my version, they're obviously a lot closer. So I think we would have had fun things like that, like Emily's bridal shower or, you know, picking out dresses together or, you know, whatever it may be. And more nights where the girls like have dinner, because we get that kind of in the first, I think it's the first 2 episodes of the Time Jump, like they go for brunch and they, you know, get coffee and stuff. And I think it would have been nice to have seen a lot more of that. Like they hang out so much at the Brew in the earlier seasons, well, from season 3. And I think it would have been nice for maybe them to have somewhere like that again. I don't know if I would have had it be the Brew, because obviously Ezra owns the Brew, and in my version, like, no, like they wouldn't be going there and supporting him. But maybe, I don't know, like a new like brunch place or like restaurant that they all really like, and they would go and have dinner together, or, you know, brunch more like regularly, like how they always used to meet before school at the Brew, I think would have been really cute. And yeah, I think just having them closer overall throughout season 7 is something I would have really liked to see, you know, confiding in each other more about their relationships and all that kind of stuff, because in my version there's no Spaleb, so there wouldn't be that divide between Hannah and Spencer, and because there isn't Ari and Ezra in my version, there also wouldn't be her constantly with him and involved in his storyline. Oh, I think I also would have had more like friendship scenes with Toby and Emily, and also like bromance scenes with Caleb and Toby, because Toby in my version isn't involved as much because him and Spencer aren't together. But we would see him, you know, building the house, or maybe Caleb going to help him, or when Hannah comes home from something, you know, Caleb and Toby are kind of hanging out, or Emily and Toby, maybe he, you know, goes to a cake tasting with her, or like something like that. I think that would have been a fun way to include him without him, you know, being with Spencer. I think Yvonne was really sweet, and I did really like her character, and I think the fact that they just kind of killed her was 1, heartbreaking, but 2, also a little lazy in order to get him and Spencer back together. So I don't know if I would include Yvonne, or if I did, it wouldn't be like fiance, it would just be more like girlfriend, and maybe they, you know, things just don't work out, or she realizes that he, you know, will always hold a candle for Spencer, and so she kind of lets go of that relationship. I think that would have been better. The only thing that breaks my heart a little about having killed off Mona in my version is that Mike and Mona don't get back together, obviously. And I love Mike and Mona. I would have had them be endgame, but since in my version Mona dies, I think I probably would have kept Mike gone as well, because obviously Cody Christian did leave the show in and around that same time, you know, after Mona's revealed to not have faked her death. He only has like 1 or 2 episodes and then he leaves. So I think I would have had him, you know, be devastated by her death and kind of like move on, go to college, and maybe not see him again, because I wouldn't have had Ari and Ezra's wedding. I wouldn't have Byron and Ella's wedding. So there's no need for him to come back. Maybe like a guest episode or something, you know, but overall, I don't have like a meaningful story for him to come back to. So I would kind of like leave that. I guess also Jason would then be involved in finding out that his you know, sister was A. So maybe I would have him come back a few episodes before the finale, because I have him and Arya like kind of reuniting in Rosewood. So maybe he, you know, comes back. I don't really know why. Maybe Alison like brings him back, hoping that maybe she could recruit him or something. Or he like comes back to see the new house or something. And that's when him and Arya kind of reconnect a little bit, and that kind of flourishes in the last few episodes. And then he obviously gets the shock that she does when he finds out that Alison was actually A. So that would have been interesting. And then he also would have had to have mourned Kenneth, because I killed off Kenneth as well. Oops. I think I would have Veronica and Peter stay married, even though I think Veronica deserves better. I think their like marriage just functioned in a weird way. It just did. So I think I would have them stay together. I would still have her run for senator and win, and all that stuff. I think that was such a cool arc for her. So I'd keep that. And obviously in my version, there's no Mary Drake. Spencer is, you know, still Veronica's daughter and stuff. So there wouldn't be that to kind of break them up. I think they would have just maybe worked through Jason being, you know, Peter's son, and they would have worked through that in the earlier seasons. So they would be like fine now. I think I would keep it that same way. For Melissa, I think after it was exposed that she was the Black Widow, and also that, you know, that maybe she and Spencer would have a bit of a heart-to-heart, and they would maybe become like closer, like after the time jump. Maybe they even live together for a little bit, like before she moves in with Alex. But I don't really have like a partner for her or anything in mind. Maybe some new guy. I wouldn't have her move to London. I think I would just have her maybe live in New York or Pennsylvania or Boston, or, you know, and she's just kind of doing her lawyer thing. I think she was a lawyer. And she's doing that, and that's fine. And she maybe like comes back for a few guest appearances, but I think after it's revealed that she was Black Widow, I wouldn't have her be, you know, a red herring again, because that would kind of be overdone at that point. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's any big characters that I've like forgotten about. I don't think I would have a love interest for Alison either. Just because I think that would just be way too much to juggle with her also like being A and everything. I think I would just have her more career focused. I think I would maybe have a little love interest for Arya along the way, but nothing super serious. I think I also would have had Holden come back, because I loved him coming back and like reconnecting with Arya. I think that would have just been really cute to see, but not in a romantic way. I think just as little besties, or maybe he also lives in New York now, so they like see each other quite often. I think it would have been cute to like, yeah, keep that friendship alive like properly. Or maybe like he also attended NYU on like a sports thing. I don't know if he would be allowed in with his heart condition though. And so they would, you know, like meet up for lunch because they both attended NYU, you know, something cute like that. I always liked Holden's character. I also don't really have an ending for Lucas, aside from him being killed. I think he would probably still become like a tech billionaire, and then Alison would just hate that he succeeded even after, you know, she tried to kind of take him down and bully him. I think that would make her annoyed that he was successful, and that would be enough for her to kill him. I think I got most of the main characters. If there's anyone that I've forgotten about and you guys are like, oh wait, what would you have done with this person? You didn't mention this person? Let me know in the comments and I will think up a story or a plot for them. I also need to sort out my lighting situation because this is nuts. So bear with me while I'm like fixing my lighting situation and my filming setup, because I don't even have like the proper tripod. I need to like actually decorate everything back here, like put up some posters and stuff, or like my PLL kind of collection. Let me know if you want, oh my god, let me know if you guys want a tour of like all my PLL stuff, in terms of like physical media, and like things I've kind of collected to do with the show. I also have like some Gossip Girl stuff in that same realm, Desperate Housewives. So let me know if you guys would want to see that. Maybe I'll do that on my second channel. Oh, you know what? And also, I would just let Maya smoke weed. Like, let that girl live. Do you know what I mean? She can smoke weed. Is weed legal in Miami? I don't know. But if it is, let that girl live. Do you know what I mean? That was crazy. That was crazy. Also, I would have Pam apologize to Maya, like properly. I would have us see, you know, her say, you know, you're going to marry my daughter and I think you're a great match for her, or, you know, something like that. Because she literally ruined Maya's life. Like, low-key, actually not even low-key, high-key, in the show, Pam causes Maya's death by getting her sent to that camp, and then she meets Lyndon. So I think an apology is owed by Pamela, personally. If there's anything I didn't touch on, or that doesn't really make sense, or if you're like, oh, what would happen with this person, or, you know, what would that all be about, or how does that work with this storyline or something, then just comment it down below, and then I'll think about how it fits into my rewrite, and then I'll like comment back to you guys and like fill in the blanks if there's anything else that you guys are curious about, like how I would have handled different storylines or something. Or I don't know, maybe it could be fun if you guys comment how would you have written this storyline, and then I'll do another video where I go through those comments and say, because it's obviously kind of hard to make it so that it's a complete story arc, but if I'm looking at specific storylines and just looking at those individually, like separate from the whole story and how it would work, then I can have a bit more fun with like what I would have done with it. So now that I've kind of summed it all up for you, this is my vision of what the final 10 minutes of the show would be. So we have Emily and Maya on the beach in Miami, Spencer and Toby in the house that he built, Jason and Aria in their bedroom in their New York apartment, when everyone gets a text from Caleb to say that Hannah has gone into labor. So all of the couples fly into Rosewood. Oh, I also have in my version that Ted and Ashley are married, because that was so cruel to not put them together. So yeah, there's no Mary Drake, there's no Sarah Harvey, there's no any of that. Spencer is still a Hastings. She's still like Veronica's still her mum. And Ted and Ashley end up together and get married, and there's no cheating with Jason, there's no none of that weird stuff. They just get a happy ending, okay? So they all fly out to Rosewood, all the couples, and Emily and Maya reveal they're going to begin their IVF journey together in Miami, which they're both really excited about. And then Hannah ends up having a girl, and she's excited that their little girl will be able to be the flower girl in their wedding, because Caleb and Hannah still haven't got married yet at this point. And Spencer and Toby are going to France for the summer. Jason asks Aria, because obviously there's like that whole connection to like the fact they speak French together, and I think that part of their relationship was so cute. So it's like them playing Scrabble together in France, like just so cute. And then Jason asks Aria to go with him for the next Karasimi charity project in Ethiopia, and she says yes. And she says that she's going to start writing the sequel to her, you know, popular book while she's there. And lastly, so that's it. Everyone's happy, everyone's good. The closing scene is Cece and Allison are in jail together. So it's like 2 cells and they're side by side. So they're in different cells, but they're like joining cells, if that makes sense. So you have Cece sat on one side, Allison sat on the other, like back to back, right? So like Cece sat here, like back against the wall, and then Allison sat here, back against the wall, so they're kind of like mirroring each other, right? and they're still plotting against the girls. They're talking about all the things that they're going to do when they finally get out of here, and they can get their revenge. And Alison gets up and goes over to her bed and pulls out dolls that look like the 4 girls out from under her pillow, kind of like Mona style. She like strokes their hair and like takes them back. But when she sits back down, right, like I said, when she sits back down on the floor, Cece's gone. She's disappeared. And it is revealed that Cece died of her injuries. She died in the well, in the dollhouse. She did not survive, but Alison believes that she is still there. And she still talks to her and is convinced that the 2 of them are going to get out of jail one day and they're going to continue the game. And that's it. That is how I would have ended Pretty Little Liars. I hope you guys like it. I hope it made sense as well, because I feel like it was so convoluted and it's really hard to talk about it because you're like, oh, I have to explain why this person is A. But obviously if you're watching it as a TV show, you wouldn't know that until the end that they're A. So hopefully like the wording and everything, like it was okay and it sounded all right and you guys understood what I was trying to say. But yeah, that's basically it. In my version, everyone ends up happy. Hannah and Caleb are together. They have a baby. Spencer and Toby together. They're traveling the world, living in the house that Toby built. Aria and Jason are together. And she's, you know, a successful author. And Emily, you know, Maya lives and her and Emily get married. They're going to have little babies in Miami. And she's a surf instructor and they are just on the beach all day, living their best lives. Ted and Ashley are married. Ezra's in jail. Ella and Byron aren't together because fuck him. Truly. Yeah, Spencer's a successful interior designer. Toby does the carpentry. Hannah runs her little boutique. Caleb has his tech business. Yeah, and Cece and Alison are the final A's. Cece dies and Alison is left to kind of rot in jail. But it also kind of leaves it open, obviously, the fact that she is alive, that if after this they ever did a movie or another season, that could have maybe worked. You know, she could have escaped or she could have been let out of jail and it would have been a whole thing. And that is it. I hope you guys liked it. Please let me know what you thought in the comments and please let me know your version of events. I love reading stuff like this, like it's so genuinely, so please tell me, who would you have had end up together? Who would have had kids? Who wouldn't? Like what jobs would they have had? What, you know, hopefully it made sense. Yeah, I am so excited to be making videos again and there's going to be videos coming. I know that it was such a long break between this one and that and my previous one, but I have so many fun ones planned. So yeah, I love you guys lots for not leaving me, even though I haven't posted in so long. But yeah, love you guys. And yeah, obviously I have a Google form that I will link below for video. Let me run that back, try again. I have a Google form linked below where you can submit video ideas. So I'm going to be making those as well, which I'm super excited about. You guys have already put in so many requests and they're so good. So I'm going to start doing those ones as well. So if you guys have any, obviously, like I said, let me know below. You can also follow me on Instagram or like TikTok. I don't really post on TikTok, but you can follow me on there. Yeah, love you guys, and I will see you in the next video soon. I promise. Okay. Bye. Oh, it feels so good to make a video again. Okay, bye.